RotoGrinders, Dean here. It is the start of the People's Show, the start of all sorts of football, NFL DFS, taking y'all straight at the lock, starting right now. Returning champion is Bobby Gomes. Bobby is back for week 3. We're here for the next hour and a half. If you want to get all technical, we yield to Erik Beimfohr and the newest millionaire. Well, there might have been a millionaire in the last couple of days. I'm not sure, but the newest millionaire in the RG space for sure. SquirrelPatrol, he's still here. He's going to be coming out at 11 o'clock. Crunch time comes on around 12:15, 12:20, 12:30 or so. I don't know the exact time, but, going straight up the lock. It's Bobby Gomes. It's 9:30 in the morning in the East Coast, 6:30 in the West Coast. Good Lord. Good morning, West Coast. What's up, Bobby? How are things in your world?
Everything's good. Ready for some week 3 fantasy football action. Daily fantasy sports, I guess, would be the right thing to say, not fantasy football. We don't love season-long questions, except if you're Dean. You can send Dean all your season-long questions during the show. But, yeah, we're ready. Week 3, ready to rock and roll.
Somebody already tweeted at me today, season-long PPR, Pitts or Taysom Hill. And I didn't know how to answer the question, so I didn't answer it. I was just going to answer like the Larry David gif where I don't know, man. I can't. It's both kind of terrible. But
that's your go-to gif, isn't it, Dean?
I mean, I'm all me and Larry David, yeah, for sure. Like if I had a chalk GIF, I would use Larry David's my guy for sure. And I've been compared to George Costanza once or twice over the years as well, and that's of course where the character was based off of on Seinfeld. How are you, Tim? Returning champion. Glad to see you. No, you're actually not the returning champion. You were off last week because
I was off last week.
You were dealing with the hurricane. Glad everything you survived. Everything was all good. Welcome back. Hopefully you feel rejuvenated. And week 3, let's do it. Ready to dive in, Tim? How do we feel?
Yeah, I feel good. Definitely ready to go. This is a pretty awesome slate. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go, and then there's a couple games that are going to be very, very heavily owned. So we're going to have to take some time to talk about those games. But yeah, this is a really great slate.
Yeah, it's a 12-gamer. There's some weather lurking. I'll drop Kevin Ross weather article in the chat as well. What's up, chat? Kindly hit that like button, subscribe, turn on the notifications, do all those things, tell the buttons, do all those things, get comfortable, ask questions, join the conversation. Hey, you guys, what if I told you there was a game today that has a 54.5 total? And it's not just that. The game is expected to be playing fast, right? And like I just mentioned, weather, no elements. It's in a dome. And not only that, it's high, but it's also tight. It's expected to be like a 1-point game, and the Chargers are in it. And the Chargers, for the last 47 straight games, give or take, they've had the ball down by 3. So every game is close when the Chargers play. You kind of alluded to this one, Tim. Chargers, Minnesota, it's going to be crazy, crazy popular. We'll talk about that. One of the first things you do at the start of the show, we kind of throw up a cash game lineup. What a cash game lineup looks like on DK. We have that conversation, maybe some 2v2s and things like that. And no surprise, you're going to see some Chargers and Vikings in that lineup, which we'll show here in a second. But, yeah, Tim, this is like one of the big decision points on the slate, right? Just Chargers, Vikings, what are you doing with it? Are you fully in? You fully out? Are you just going to be with the field and try to get different elsewhere? Yeah, how do you feel about Chargers, Minnesota? Kind of sort of a losers leave town game to some degree. It's early in the season, but they're both 0-2. Some sense of urgency on both sides for these teams. Yeah, this is the big decision point, right, to start with?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to be playing three teams today in the 3 max contests. I'll have one of those teams in single entry contests, and then I'll also be playing some cash games today also. And, this is the game where I'm going to be getting the most of my exposure to. And the key for me is how do I build the auxiliary pieces kind of around this game differently so that I'm not just like completely eating all of the chalk. So that's going to be, this game, it's so hard for me to say, don't play this game, right? Like in cash, I think you should be getting multiple pieces of this game. I think in single entry, you should be getting multiple pieces of this game and try to build out kind of different, like I said, different auxiliary pieces. But this is the game, and I think there's a really good chance that this game exceeds expectations. So I'm going to be building into it. I don't care that it's popular.
Yeah, Bobby, your thoughts as well. And we're going to do game by game in a little bit as well. Not every single game, but the ones that are most important. So feel free to hold back a little bit, just kind of give a bit of a tease, and we'll talk about the Chargers in Minnesota. Kind of put that in the back burner. But as far as the slate overview, I think this is one of the first questions you have to answer.
Yeah, there is an integral piece of this game that I'm probably not playing. We can get to it when we basically talk over this game. But I will have a group set in my builds. I'm building 150 where I'm getting at least one piece of what I would say condensed the most utilized players in this game between both offenses on every team. Probably be at least one. I might do at least two, but I think it's going to be at least one to basically start my group. And then I don't know. There's a spot where I do want to get different, though, because I think there is some leverage opportunities. And, yeah, these ancillary pieces, like we're seeing so much ownership gravitate towards a specific, like the wide receiver group and certain running backs. But some of these ancillary guys that are cheaper, they're going to come in drastically under owned in a total where this is the 5 points higher than any other game on the slate. So I think you can get over on those guys. I think that's a good way of playing it in tournaments. But interested to hear how you guys are approaching this.
Yeah, I think this is a really fun slate. By the way, I really think it's great, and they're going to get some great pieces that are going to be somewhat, I don't want to say unowned, somewhat neglected, or over neglected, I guess is the way to say it. Just because people are going to concentrate and gravitate so much to Chargers, Minnesota. Let's go ahead and producer Steve can throw that cash game lineup. And there's multiple ways to go. I was looking at it last night and running some optimals, and actually 2 tight ends were popping up, Tim. I don't know if that's still the case. I've not run an optimal just yet. I'm going to do it right now. And I add a little bit of variance to it and things like that. And the difference between optimal 1 and optimal 5 is a point. So if that, maybe decimal points, right? So I don't think you have to be married to the very first one. But let's go ahead and throw yours up here, Tim, and talk me through it. You kind of referenced it to, Minnesota and the Chargers are going to be heavily involved in cash games. Give me the thought process here.
Yeah, like I said, I'm definitely going to be going heavy on this game in cash. I think so. I know for sure, not a hot take. I know for sure, Jefferson is going to be my cash lineup. He should be in everybody's cash lineup. That's like a no-brainer. And then I think, Kirk Cousins, he's already the number 1 quarterback on the season. I think he maintains that through this week also. And then, so Keenan Allen is kind of the interesting decision because I think you could also save money and go Mike Williams too, for I believe it's $1,600 less. So there's one way that I think that you could make a pivot like in single entry. I think you could also play Mike Williams in cash. That's one. I don't think is like a necessarily I don't think he's an absolute lock, but I think it's either he or Mike Williams in your cash games. And then I initially put in Zach Ertz, but I think you could also go Durham Smythe for $600 less. So that's another way to save some money. Then if you elect to save some money off Keenan Allen or Zach Ertz, then you possibly could go a little bit more expensive at running back and get guys like Travis Etienne or Gibbs. Paul, but yeah, I don't know if you can get up to Pollard in cash. I would love to, Dean. Don't get me wrong. But I
he's
don't know.
In the very first optimal for what it's worth.
He is. Wow.
He's in it.
Yeah.
And again, I added a little bit of variance, added a little bit of juice. It might be not, with the one I'm running, but it's basically it's Jefferson and Pollard as the 2 big studs.
Those are the 2 studs.
But the other part is it's double tight end, which I don't like. I don't like double tight ends.
Okay. All right. See, I didn't run any optimals. I was just kind of doing this just real quick before the show. I didn't run optimals because I didn't want to put the optimal on the screen. But
sure.
Yeah. So, okay. I mean, I don't know if obviously Pollard's in a smash spot. I'm certainly not going to tell people not to play Pollard if that's what they could get to. I just think that I would prefer kind of getting a little bit lower at running back. But if you can play Pollard in cash, then by all means, that spot's amazing for him. So, but you're not going to be able to play, Keenan. So you're going to have to go down to somebody Mike Williams, or Christian Kirk or something like that, or save money and go down to Durham Smythe off of Ertz. So, that's the way that you're going to have to construct your lineup. But I think I think that Cousins and Jefferson, and then I'm a little bit nervous about Kelly, but I mean, this is a game that I want exposure to, and he's still ridiculously cheap, and I think this is an amazing bounce back spot for him. So I'm going to play Kelly in cash, and I hope that this game stays close, and he's a big part of it.
Couple things. I want to bring Bobby in a second as well. I know he's not a cash game guy, but I'll have some thoughts for sure. I'm going to predict, by the way, that Bobby, the key piece in this game, he's not playing Minnesota and the Chargers, is Josh Kelly. I think that's the one he's going to throw out and say, you know what? I don't need that nonsense. He's not, unless he gets in the box twice, I'm not going to lose because I didn't play Josh Kelly. Bobby, you're playing poker over there. I'm trying to read your face. Like, you give me nothing. I'm trying to see if you're going to give it away, but apparently not. We'll see in a second. But a couple questions as far as construction for you, Tim. By the way, Mike Williams is going to be much more heavily owned than Keenan Allen in cash just because he makes more sense with salary. Mm-hmm. Chargers pieces. Would you play? We were talking about this in Discord last night. Join the Discord, RotoGrinders.com/Discord. The NFL chat room. Almost all the Discord channels are free. You just need a regular RG account. We're kind of bouncing around. Like, I was in there like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We're talking some DFS, so it's kind of fun. But, your thoughts as far as running out like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams in cash. And there's Kelly lurking too. And like, there's no way I'm playing all three. And I don't even know if I
there's no chance I'm playing. No chance I'm playing all three. I guess. I don't know. I don't know if I like. I love that for an onslaught stack in tournaments. That's for darn sure. But I don't know if I like that in cash. It seems like I want one or the other for cash games, but for tournaments, I love that.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. Like, I don't think I'm going to end up on 3 pieces for the Chargers. If I get Kelly in one of the receivers, I guess that's okay. But even that is, I don't know. I think it's fine. Bobby, do you want to hold that tease? Was I right on Josh Kelly being the piece you're throwing out in this game?
You were wrong, Dean. You were wrong.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
If we get these likes up, I'll get into it a little more. We could get these likes up. 219 watching, 25 likes. We could do better than that. Like, I definitely think we can do better than that.
That's egregious.
That's egregious. Like, let's just get these likes up a little bit. 220 now, 24 likes. We can get these up. No, for me, the guy that I'm kind of skeptical on, and I know this is gonna be contrarian as probably anything on this slate, is Kirk Cousins. Like, yeah, I'll play him in cash, but in GPPs, like, I think there's ways to get away from him. Same thing with I actually like Kelly to bounce back this week. Zach Moss getting a full workload. I know it's 5-5, but that Baltimore run defense is stifling. Like, I'm very skeptical about Zach Moss as good chalk. I get it in cash games. Like, I get the Kelly build. I get the Moss build. I probably would go down on Mike Williams just because if I'm thinking about other cash players, they're going to take the 6K and just move on because it's a good savings on Mike. He's popping in every optimal. And then do my best to get the Pollard. If you can still get it in that build, I would imagine. I just think Pollard's in a phenomenal spot. Ertz, I think, will be Smythe for a lot of people. I don't know why that is, but I just feel like just because of all the routes that he's running, that people want to go to Smythe. I guess that works. I guess I'm not positive. For me, like, he's not getting targeted, but obviously I would imagine Surtain's going to be on Tyreek, right? Like, not that Tyreek can't burn any corner in the league. I'm just trying to see that there will be targets funneled other places. And that's pretty much my thoughts in terms of cash game construction. But in GPPs, like, there's so many guys around Kirk Cousins, a guy with no rushing equity on DK being like a sticking point in a lot of GPP lineups, and I'm seeing him hit like all the models, all the sims, everything. He's coming in overweight. Like, I don't want any part. I know it's 1 p.m. Kirk Cousins. I know it's a thing. He's at home. Like, this fits the narrative, but not for me. Like, I just can't play Kirk Cousins for whatever it is. I know he's been fantastic. I know they're throwing the ball to extremely high clip. It's just, for me, with no rushing equity on DK, I don't want to pay 6.9 for Kirk Cousins. Yeah, in cash, I would be playing him, but I'm trying to get away from him in tournaments. Like, that's where I'm trying to go. And then Zach Moss too. I think we'll get into it a little bit later, but I think there's an interesting running back that no one's talking about, not hitting projections. I think he's trending up within the offense that we can kind of get to. basically to get away from a play like Zach Moss. Not saying he's going to beat Zach Moss, but could come in his range based on where his salary is. And it's not Kendre Miller. I got a guy later in the show.
That's what I thought it was. I was thinking Kendre Miller.
They keep telling me we need to tease stuff more. So, I'm giving all the teases I can get,
I thought for sure it was Kendre Miller. So, and I've been banging the drum as far as I don't want to play quarterbacks that don't have legs in tournaments.
No,
Cousins
not
makes
at all.
a ton of sense. Because if we were going to hold a draft, right? We're going to hold a draft, Bobby. And I say we're just drafting who's the quarterback one in week 3. How many quarterbacks are you picking before you get the Cousins? Cousins, one route to get there is to throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, which he can do. That's the only way he gets there. I'm
also super bullish on Madison this week. I think he does. They're going to lean on him more than I think people realize. It's a great spot for him, right? And the market's completely down on him. He's going to get lost in translation. He's only 300 more than Zach Moss. He's going to see the same workload, I would imagine. They're going to, he fumbled twice on a Thursday night game. He hasn't fumbled previously in his career. He shows no history of fumbling. Obviously, they go out and they trade for Cam Akers, which I think was a complete overreaction. But I do like Madison in this game a lot, too. So I think that kind of brings me down on Cousins even more so.
And it's likely his last chance for Madison.
It is, right?
So I mean, he's really got to show it this week.
Is he clutch? He knows that. He has to know that.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't give anything out for Akers for it's a 7th round and a 6th round. I think they flipped or something like that. But just the idea of them bringing him in, and he can take those touches, and maybe that was sort of an indictment on not loving Chandler. I thought they liked Chandler behind him, but. Madison, and also I think he had 2 fumbles last week as well, which it's kind of a randomness to it. But it's an interesting thought as far as Madison. If you think he's clutch, he's a part of a great team, and coming into the season, he was one of those guys that had a great projected workload, but it has not gone swimmingly just yet. Anything else here of note that we should point out before we close this up as far as the cash game, Tim? Defense is obviously pretty flexible. If you have no salary, I think Washington's probably the best punt. If you have a little bit more money, I'd probably take Cleveland over Buffalo, but I'm not prioritizing spending 3-3 on my defense in cash. I'll tell you something. I was talking to somebody earlier about their cash lineup, and what do you think of this, Tim? I actually don't hate it for tournaments. For cash, it's kind of ballsy because it can be that one decision that totally burns you. Tyreek, you said you got to play Jefferson, and sure, Jefferson's spectacular, but Tyreek outscores him 45% of the time or so. I don't know what the exact number is. He's a tick cheaper. Is that just asking for it if you play Tyreek over Jefferson in cash?
No. I mean, I think it's okay. I wouldn't do it, but I mean, I don't think it's absolutely horrible if you did it. If you really, really, really need that $300, I think it's okay. But I'm definitely fully on board Jefferson for cash.
Yeah, I'm kind of bouncing back and forth the idea, and I'm also one of those wimps that I will have more than one cash lineup sometimes. Tim, how do you feel about people that do that?
What? No.
I'm that guy.
That's worse than doing 10% on every player, Dean. I mean,
33%. No, man.
I'm
all about that hedge life, man. The 2v2s. It's so close.
You just like paying the juice, don't you, Dean? That's what you like paying the rake. That's what you're into.
Here's the thing. You're gonna find you can build 3 cash lineups that both look basically the same. They're 2v2s, 3v3s, maybe even a 1v1. The projection is 0.5 difference, and you're gonna distinctly feel like this one's so much better than that one. You have that much confidence, or you just want to take a stand, and that's that.
Dean, when you get a 20 in blackjack, do you split them up? I'm just wondering. I'm just curious.
It's a good question, Tim.
What does the dealer have? The dealer have a 6?
Yeah, if the dealer has a 6 and you have a 20, do you split your 20?
Does the house hit on a soft 17?
Dean, just answer the question.
I don't see the correlation personally, but I will take the 20. Give me the 20.
All right, I was just
come
asking.
get me, dealer.
I was just asking. All right.
Well, Mindful in chat says that's a perfect analogy. So maybe it was a good analogy.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good analogy, actually. But
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, Rain Man can count cards. I don't have that ability. I think didn't he hit an 18? I think he hit an 18 if I'm not mistaken, back in the day. But yeah, I'm not hitting on 20. That's outrageous. Okay, Bobby. Anything else we should say before let's do a little game by game, some of the important games, and we talked about the Chargers of Minnesota, the most important game of the slate. Let's kind of dig in more. It's high, it's tight, it's in a dome. We got fast pace, everything you want. Bad defenses as well. If you're not playing Cousins, are you playing a ton of Herbert? Or are you just going to be like getting the, give me a receiver and a running back on every single side, or 2-1 on every single team? If you're just Xing out Kirk Cousins in tournaments, which I love that thought process. Are you loading up with Herbert on the other side, or just auxiliary pieces in this game and not quarterbacks?
No, I'm going to have a good portion of Herbert. I like Herbert a good bit. It's just Cousins is in like this range where I could play Herbert 7,500, like you said. Trevor Lawrence, he's probably my favorite QB on the slate, 6,800. Jared Goff's at 6,500. Watson's at 61. Like, these are the pivots for me off Cousins. Fields is at 71. I know everyone's down on Fields. But yeah, like, Jefferson will definitely be on a good portion of my teams. Like I said, I'm making a group where I'm getting at least one player from this game on every lineup. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, I think they're great plays. I love Madison. I like Kelly. These ancillary pieces, I think the guys that kind of get lost in translation are guys like Hawkinson and Addison, just because of their price. I think people will play Osborne. He outsnapped Addison last week. He's 4K, which is good savings, especially for tournaments. And if you want to go low to Cousins, definitely like Addison, Hawkinson, though. If you're trying to get off of some Jefferson and maybe want to play those two, I think that's fine. But Jefferson's obviously my favorite play in this game. Like, he's due for a touchdown. It's coming. 100 yards is coming today. Like, I wouldn't try to get too far away from Jefferson, but I do like these ancillary pieces as well in lineups that I don't have Jefferson. On the side of the Chargers, Mike Williams, great play. Keenan Allen, I probably prefer. I think I'm in the same boat as him. But for the savings, like, Mike Williams is fine. He's probably like 800 to 1,000 too cheap for this spot. We hit on Kelly. I like Kelly. I worry about his pass game usage, but I also think it's a great spot in terms of the run game. So these are guys that he's seeing a ton of work too. Like, what do you play? Like 79% of the snaps versus Tennessee. Like, it would be stupid for me to fade Kelly at 5,400. I don't really feel like he's the best fade. So the guy that I'm trying to get away from is Cousins. And then even like Parham and Gerald Everett are basically like tight end by committee at this point. But I do think Parham is seeing an increased usage. It seems like the coaching staff likes him a little bit more than Everett for whatever reason, or just Herbert likes to target the 6'8" guy over the middle of the field. And I think that you can use him in like larger field 150 stuff. We have seen previously that in Kellen Moore offenses, they utilize the tight end. Like Dalton Schultz in Dallas last year was very much a part of what they did. And I think even though this is basically a tight end by committee, you could still roster either Everett or Parham in larger field stuff. I like Parham. I don't know if you're playing 150 or want to throw him in your pool that way. But those are all the guys I have from this game.
I want one question before I turn it over to Tim. If he has anything to add as far as Chargers, Minnesota. You're talking about not playing Cousins, Bobby. Are you restricting yourself from? Will you still unleash two Minnesota receivers, knowing you're not going to have Cousins? Will you play Hawkinson, Jefferson in the same lineup? You're okay with that?
That's where I'm trying to decide if I want to go there. I'm fine doing it if I have Chargers, if it's like within Herbert stacks and it's like a complete game stack.
Yeah, you can like Herbert's, Mike Williams.
You're getting expensive, obviously. Yeah, you're
getting squeezed at some point, or you can do like Jefferson, Osborne, or Addison,
Jefferson,
Hawkinson.
Yeah.
Tim, what do you got? Well, I know you've already talked about it from a cash game perspective. Anything you want to add it's very clear. Chargers, Minnesota look spectacular before the games are played, and we'll see how it goes down. And, it seems like the field is going to gravitate to it for all the reasons we're talking about. How about yourself? And you're playing the single entry stuff, the 3-entry max stuff, which, Tim, we know how this works. The good stuff gets risen. It's going to be even more popular in the contests you play. So you're leaning
I'm
in?
not sure. I really like TJ Hawkinson today, and I'm not sure if he's going to get that much ownership even in like the smaller field stuff. I don't think he's going to get much ownership in the large field stuff. So I mean, because he is really, really expensive. So I think if people are in that range, they're going to say, oh, maybe I should just go to Kelsey, or maybe I should just go to Mark Andrews. But I think he's a really, really important piece of this game. And I think he could really smash that $6,500 price tag. So I am considering trying to get to like a Cousins double with Jefferson and Hawkinson. That might mean that I can't play Keenan, but then I'll go to like Mike Williams instead. Something like that. I really like the Hawkinson call. Jordan Addison, that's, the KJ Osborne, Jordan Addison decision, I think, is going to be kind of tough because I think Addison will eventually overtake him, but he hasn't yet. And Osborne is still very, very cheap. So I think that, if you wanted to take some savings, I think KJ Osborne is a very, pretty strong play.
Yeah, but if you want to sell the argument that Minnesota's 0-2 and they're desperate, they might as well unleash their best receiver, and best as an air quotes. Osborne's been around there, and he's a veteran they can trust, but theoretically Addison's more talented, right? But
right.
It's at some point, like you said, he's going to take him over. Like that's the plan, at least. But is it going to happen today? I don't know. They're both going to get on the field enough where they're both playable. But it's an interesting conversation to have. Let's move on and talk about Denver, Miami. Denver versus Miami. Dolphins are 6-point favorites here. Denver, West Coast to East Coast, 1:00 local time. You have the ridiculous, the greatest home field advantage in the NFL. The NFL, the Dolphins put their opponents in the sun and they chill. They chill in the shade. I am down here in South Florida. It's not going to be ridiculously scalding. It's going to be like high 80s, I think, maybe 90 or so. Possibly some weather lurking because that's how South Florida is. There might be some showers that pop up, but I think that one of my favorite plays in this slate is Raheem Mostert. Of course, Tyreek Hill was spectacular as well. Durham Smythe was referenced before. I was really surprised to learn he's run the most routes, not just among tight ends in Miami, but amongst everybody for Miami this season. The lack of Waddle opens things up, and the River Craycraft apparently was really, really good in college for, I think, Washington or one of the Washington teams. I was maybe the Cougars, Washington State. Fun name to say. Braxton Berrios, another guy that, somebody's going to get some extra usage here. Also, the lack of Ahmed is not going to be there for Miami as well. I know A-Chain is lurking, but I love Mostert. He's one of my favorite plays on the slate. I will certainly have more than the field. I don't know what they're running back with, Bobby, as far as Denver. I think I'm just going to play Miami defense. I don't love Denver's offense as a whole. Mostert, Miami defense is an interesting tournament play for me. How are you playing this game? Or have I convinced you? Are you on board with the Dolphins as well? And Denver, can you sell me on anybody in Denver that I can feel okay about?
Yeah, so for me, I'm pretty much off Denver. Like they're using 6 wide receivers. It looks like a wide receiver by committee, even though they have Sutton, Judy, Mims. There's just so many receivers that they're using when they have 2 studs already. Like I don't want to go. Then last week, like Jamal Williams gets them down to the red zone and they run it in with the 3rd string running back. Like that's stuff I just can't deal with in terms of DFS. So nothing on Denver, but on the side of Miami, like I really like the Mostert call, like Miami defense, Vic Fangio revenge game. We know how revenge games go. It always goes for the guy who's vengeful, and I think it's Vic Fangio we're gonna throw out there this week. So yeah, no, I was obviously kidding with the revenge.
But
game.
Patrick Surtain, the defender for Denver, his dad played so many years for.
That is true. He might be he might have roots in the area, right?
Probably, yeah. I would assume so. It's probably where he's born and raised.
Yeah, so
but
for me, it's
Yeah, go ahead.
It's mainly Tyreek, and then these Berrios, Rivercraft, Smythe is, I think, an adequate tight end. I feel like he's going to be the cash game tight end for what it's worth. Tua, it would be more single stacks with Tua and Tyreek. Chain, I have way too much in best ball, but not playing him this week. He didn't see so Ahmed went out, and he'd barely seen any snaps after Ahmed went out versus the Patriots. So it seems like they want to use Mostert until Mostert pulls his hammy or tears his ACL,
Don't
whichever comes first.
Existence. How dare you? You yelled at me a couple weeks ago when I said
I'm not wishing injuries, Dean. I'm not mushing. We know who the mush is on this show. It's not me.
I said I hope nobody gets hurt. You got upset. Now you're saying, well, he's gonna get hurt. Maybe it's not this week.
But that's a known thing. He's gonna get hurt eventually. It's coming. It's definitely coming. I hope it's not today. I would never wish injuries, but I'm just saying. For my best ball shares, I'm joking. That's a complete joke. I wouldn't want to see anyone get hurt, but I do think that there's an adequate chance that Mostert gets hurt. But we can make a bet, Dean.
What's the bet?
A couple jelly beans, $100.
Okay.
Mostert doesn't last the season if you want to do that.
Well, I don't want to bet. You just then you're gonna be actively rooting for him to get hurt.
No. Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Yeah. So anyway, it's basically Tyreek and Tua stacks for me on the Miami side.
Are you not messing at all with Berrios or Craycraft? Is that just nonsense? And you don't think it's
they're in 150. They're going to make my pool. They're going to have to see targets, right? So they'll be in my pool. Whether they hit my teams in smaller field stuff, I'm playing I think 20 teams and some smaller field stuff. Then yeah, I'm fine with them hitting. The volume's going to be there. I think this is a game that could shoot over the total. So yeah, I don't mind those guys. Berrios PPR guy fits DraftKings nicely. Rivercraft. Is it Rivercraft? Raycraft? I'm so confused. River Craycraft. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
He's fine. Yep. Seeing good red zone targets.
Tim, jump in here. Speaking of rookie receivers that should get some run, Mims caught 2 big passes last week, but he was barely on the field, and because he was playing behind Lil Jordan Humphrey and I think Brandon Johnson as well. Not exactly sure what Denver's doing, and also Russ Wilson's throwing the ball to him, and don't fully trust him. I saw somebody in chat talk about Troutman. I guess Troutman, somebody you can put in that conversation, a 3K tight end, getting elevated with the injury to Dolich. But yeah, what do you have here, Tim? Anything you want to add to Miami, Denver? If you could sell me on somebody in Denver, please, by all means, go for it. But I'm playing Dolphins defense.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to do it, especially if you're going to be as high on Mostert as you are. I think that's the right way to go about it. If you really wanted to play a Denver piece, I think it's Courtland Sutton, but I don't say that with very much confidence at all whatsoever. I also think Adam Trotman might be someone that's very contrarian and the Millie Maker. He plays pretty much every down. So, I mean, he's not very good, but he's the type of guy that nobody's going to have. And I think he might be somebody in a very, very large field that you could add. But yeah, it's not, Denver's not really a team that I am that excited to play. I was surprised to see that, Durham Smythe is only 1 target behind Jalen Waddle for the season. That was surprising to me. I feel like I've watched a lot of Miami, and I knew that, I knew Tyreek was number 1, but I didn't realize that Smythe was very close to being number 2. So, he might be. I think Bobby's right. I think Smythe is going to be the cash game tight end. Where initially I thought it was going to be Ertz, but I think it is going to be Smythe.
Yeah, I mean nobody wants to play Ertz, but he's getting just so many targets there, doing nothing with. He's averaging 2 yards per target or something goofy like that. It's really, really silly what Arizona's doing. Eric and chat, but give me the business saying my bold calls were not that bold. You guys tell me. I put them on Twitter, and if you guys get the right bold call and you answer my tweet, you'll get yourself a week free of RG Premium. I dropped that link in chat as well. Don't put your response in chat. Put the put it in the thread. But feel free to tell me, Bobby or Tim. Is Eric right? Was I not bold enough? Mostert is going to be a top 3 raw points running back. Is that not a bold call? Should I have said just 1 and that's that? I don't know. I think that's kind of bold. No? Yes?
I think that's bold. Yeah, no, yeah, you can go.
No, I think that's pretty bold. I mean, you said he's got to be a top 3 running back on the slate.
Yeah,
I
raw
think,
points.
I think that's pretty bold. I think
Right.
that's definitely bold.
I said Dolphins top 2 defense, raw points. Like I think again, there's a bunch of teams playing defense today, top 2. Sam Laporta, top 2 raw points tight end. Like, come on. Kelsey's playing today, so is Andrews, other people too. Hawkinson.
That's bold.
By the way, this is another one I threw out here. It's kind of fun, but like Taysom and Tyreek, the Hills combined for 3 touchdowns today. Is that bold? That's bold, right?
That's bold, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what's Erik talking about? He's kicking back on Grandpa's cough medicine pretty early this morning. And Roschon Johnson outscores Jerome Ford. Also bold.
That was your bold?
Yeah.
That's my guy.
Is it? That's your guy?
That's my guy.
Wow.
He's really cheap.
He's really
gonna be
no one's playing him.
I am
too.
Share him.
That Chiefs Bears game is gonna be so weird. Like someone's gonna like break the slate in that game. I don't know who it is. I'm probably not getting any exposure to it in 3 max, but I mean that game is very like I could see Justin Fields like rushing for like 130 yards. Like I don't know. It's just like that game is so weird to me.
Let's talk about it.
12-point
dogs. Yeah,
the Bears had like the most interesting week I've ever seen in terms of the QB calls out the coach, the defensive coordinator gets his house raided, and then like they get their equipment stolen. Did anyone hear that? They got their equipment stolen from the stadium.
They had $100,000 worth of equipment stolen from Soldier Field.
All in one week.
Yeah.
And Fields was kind of like indicating that the coaches are having him over. I don't know. Be a robot out there, right? You just can't like let him be him, let him do his thing, and like that's probably what you're alluding to, Tim. He's just going to say, "Screw it, They're not drawing up any rush plays for him, which seems like a weird thing. I don't pretend to be an OC or whatever, but that seems like why not lean into the skill set of Justin Fields and let him go. It really can be ugly too. It could be like a 30-0 game at the half, and like that wouldn't shock me either. But
that's the thing. Like if it is 30-0, then it could be like Travis Kelce scores like 3 TDs. You know what I mean? Like I feel like somebody's gonna like absolutely smash in that game. You know, so it's like I don't know. I don't know what to do with it. I'm probably staying away from it in 3 max. But I think if I'm building 150, I'm getting some good exposure to both sides of that game.
The scar is probably still there, Bobby, but I know you played a ton of Kelsey last week. I did too.
I played Kelsey, and that was horrible.
Yeah,
but he was on a pitch count and seen 9 targets. He could have had 2 touchdowns. Not that the 2 touchdowns would have mattered on DK because there was obviously tight ends that outscored that. But if he caught more than 0 passes in the first half, like he would have been all right. Like I don't think he was the worst call. If he's on a pitch count, like, and he sees 9 targets, imagine the volume he's going to see when their implied team totals over 30 this week. Tough not to play Kelsey again. And
Pacheco expected to play, by the way. Now, not to cut you off, but that dropped earlier today. Pacheco is dealing with a hamstring, so he's expected to go. This is a later game, the most interesting later game, probably. I guess depends how you want to argue that. But like NFL, come on, what are we doing? We're running on 12 games. We're doing 9-3, 9 early, 3 late. Scott Hansen, well, we got to get at least 4 late. Is that asking too much, Bobby? Is that asking too much?
I think at least 4 late. Yeah, that's how I would kind of split up. It makes sense to split it up that way.
You finish your thought, Bobby. I cut you off. I wanted to make sure that people knew that Pacheco is good to go. So McKinnon, Pacheco, CEH, they're all lurking. The receivers, who knows? Like the constant is Kelsey, the most likely scenario there. Of course, he's the most expensive too. But and you're playing. Are you playing Mahomes and Kelsey and running it back with Roschon? Like the thought process is Roschon's going to be the guy sooner than later. He's eating in. God, what's his name? Who's been like a healthy scratch? Who coming into the season was like their third down kind of change of pace back. He's already basically gone. I can't remember who it is, but I think Roschon would probably be the garbage guy if this game gets really ugly, unless it's like insanely a blowout. Then maybe it's like Travis Homer comes in or something like that. But yeah, how are you playing this game?
Yeah, so for me, I think you could play it. I think one of the predominant ways the industry's been saying to play it is to play Fields by himself and then play Kelsey, which I don't really love. I would rather take the shot on Roschon because I think it is an interesting construction point in the slate, how you view Ford and how you view Roschon. If you think Ford is going to get outscored by Roschon, play Roschon. I personally think you can play both of them because the difference between Kelly and Ford is Kelly didn't see any pass game work where Ford will. And in that sense, it gives him a higher floor at 4,800. So I think you could play him versus Tennessee. I know Tennessee's defense has been phenomenal versus the run, but I think you would play them both, take the savings. Roschon's just trending upward. They like him as a better pass blocker than Khalil Herbert, who's 500 or 400 more, whatever he is, 500 more. So the game script favors Roschon. He's a better runner than Khalil, in my opinion. He's utilizing the passing game more. He just seems like the play. They also, Kansas City, with Chris Jones and the issues that Chicago's going to have on the offensive line with their left tackle out, left guards probably sitting, the right guard's been banged up, and Chris Jones in the middle. Those quick passes, like out of the backfield, are probably going to be utilized, I would imagine, in this scenario. So I would be looking for one of the running backs. If you like Khalil Herbert, play Khalil Herbert. For me, it's just Roschon because I think that's where the coaching staff wants this running game to be eventually by the end of the year. So I'm going to try to get on it early.
We had Mabs helping me out there in chat saying Dante Foreskin, which of course I was trying to think of Dante Foreman. I couldn't get there, but that was good enough. That was a good enough clue, which got me there. Tim, you said like something in here is going to pop, but do you feel you have any conviction as far as what it is?
Yeah, that's the thing. I really don't have any conviction about who it's going to be. I really liked Bobby's analysis with that. Getting some exposure to Johnson. If you want to play Herbert, you can play Herbert. I think my lean would be to play Justin Fields naked. That would be kind of like where my lean would be. But that's just, I think that there's going to be an abundance of scoring. And I think Chicago is going to outperform expectations in this game. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to cover the spread. But I think that there's going to be some explosive plays coming from Chicago.
I did want to mention Ross weather report. The one that looks the diciest is the Jets. The Jets at home versus New England. It, not surprisingly, has the lowest total on the board. Also, 2 inept offenses. We're looking at, let's see, I'll go ahead and read it. And again, I'll drop this in chat for the people. Wind sustained 10 to 15, gust 25 to 30. The East Coast game that he's most concerned about. Pretty good shot of some rain at some point during the game. And it's officially orange. We're still almost 3 hours until that one kicks off. So this stuff can change. It is fluid, but that's where we're at right now. Yellow in Baltimore, yellow in Washington, yellow in Miami, yellow in Seattle. The news, this is a good segue to talking about Detroit and Atlanta. 46.5 is a total. Detroit about a 4-point favorite here. Montgomery officially out here, Tim. Gibbs, the report on Gibbs is, according to Pelissero, expected to get the majority of the work in week 3. And man, the Lions have a history of this. The same coach is obviously a different player, but we saw it with Swift a lot. They got jerked around. And Craig Reynolds is right there, and he's a guy that they seem more than happy to use as well. And even the Zonovan Knight, I think, was elevated or will be elevated from the practice squad. Not that you're running him out there, but the other thing is, I think this is going to manipulate ownership to some degree, right? He was already on people's radar, but some were a little bit hesitant, I would imagine. But I think he's going to jump a little bit in ownership with this news. Just in general, talk about Gibbs, the running back situation there for Detroit, and then everything else. This game, again, on the turf, you got to land on the other side, which is kind of annoying because all I do is run the ball. You have the narrative of the 1 and 2 running backs coming into this year. And I got a question for Bobby, actually. I'll hold that for Bobby. I was going to ask you, Tim, but I think it's a better Bobby question. Your assessment, what are we looking at as far as Atlanta, Detroit?
I like the game as a whole. I certainly have no problem with Gibbs in tournaments. I think he has an explosive upside. I'm a little bit concerned, we're showing him as the 4th highest owned running back on the slate. Not, I think he's a very strong play. I think this is a good setup. Like who knows? Like you said, like they have a history of just telling us tales about who's going to be getting the majority of the work. But I think 6,600. I think he could easily exceed his projection. But it's not something that I necessarily want to bank on. Initially I was like, maybe I could play him in cash games, but I don't think you can do that. But I think he is going to make one of my 3 max teams today.
This is why you play 3 cash games. You're playing one of the 3.
No, Dean. He's
a 33% guy. He's a 33% guy.
Right, yeah.
That's what this seems like.
I think you can play him in cash, for the record. I don't think you have to, but I think you can. Like if you sort of land on.
You think you can?
I think you can.
Wouldn't you rather just play 300 for ETN? I mean, I really don't think you can play Gibson.
You can't trust reports out of Detroit about running back Steen. Come on, in cash games?
I know he's good already, but I think he's getting like 15 touches at a minimum. He's going to catch the ball 3, 4, 5 times possibly. Both receivers are dinged to some degree. Like they're going to play Reynolds and Amon-Ra, but they don't seem to be 100%. At least they haven't been the last week or so. I'm not forcing it, to be clear. I'm not forcing it. I'm not going out of my way to force Gibbs. And I think
but you're saying if someone showed up with it, you wouldn't be.
It's not the worst. Yeah. I don't think I wouldn't make fun of somebody that plays Gibbs in cash is basically the angle I'm working. I haven't worked him in. Like I haven't seen the build, what it looks like with him, to be honest. But question for you, Bobby. And I've heard the GPP, this is your lane. The GPP guys talking about how like it's suboptimal. You're not supposed to play 2 running backs in the same game against each other, right? Is that a hard and fast rule for you? Do you abide by that? And I think you can break that rule in this game.
Yeah, so it's not a hard and fast rule because there are running backs like Bijan Robinson who are running a ton of routes from the basically slot, like guys that can catch passes, which basically fits the mold for both Gibbs and Bijan. I feel like you can play them in the same lineup. With Madison and Kelly today, that's an interesting one because Kelly isn't going to see the pass catching role or hasn't so far, where Madison might. So I think it's it's fine if you think that the Chargers are playing from ahead and Madison's kind of chasing. I think it's fine to do it in that way. But if you see the Chargers chasing, then I wouldn't. If you see the game script of the Chargers chasing, I wouldn't play Kelly and Madison together on teams for sure.
Well, I see a question in chat. I'm trying to keep my eye on chat. I want to appease everybody, work everything in as much as possible. We're here for the next 40 minutes. We yield to Erik Beimfohr, the newest millionaire SquirrelPatrol. We go all the way up the lock. Well, myself, Bobby, and Tim, we step aside at 11 o'clock. But, this stream goes all the way to 1 o'clock kickoff time. They're talking about playing for Kansas City. There's about the Tony being out, and I have not seen that. What I see is Kadarius Toney's in. So I just wanted to clarify that unless you guys saw something. They're saying, what about McKinnon with Tony being out? But I don't think Tony's out. And McKinnon's usage this year has been really bad, and he turned 31 really fast. And we know how lucky he was with touchdowns last year. And I did play him a little bit earlier in the season, and I'm kind of backing off. But maybe like in the late slate, like the 3-gamer, I'm kind of working him in. But just want to clarify, you guys have seen Tony in, right? Have you seen anything otherwise? He's got a toe, but he's got 10. One is not feeling as good as the other ones, but he's expected to play.
Earlier in the week, I seen that he might miss, and then I was looking at like the guys that I could play outside of him, and it was like MVS, Watson, and Sky Moore, and I just threw up in my mouth and was like, and I haven't paid attention to the news since. So maybe I think he might be. If they think he's in, maybe he's back in. I'm not sure.
I'm trying to find anything on it, and I think he's in.
That's what I see. Schultz is saying he was in 14 hours ago, unless something's changed, unless I missed it. He's expected to play. Bobby, this is a Bobby question. It's definitely not a Tim question because there's no way Tim's playing Desmond Ridder. I've seen people throw out Desmond Ridder as a quarterback.
No way.
I don't get this. What am I know he can run a little bit, but he never throws.
I get I get people are trying to pay down for these quarterbacks, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, just pay up. Like, the only one I think I'd be willing to pay, there are two actually, Minshew and Stroud. Yeah, Minshew, because we've seen the 10 targets to Pittman. Like, I think it was the second half of the game, Pittman seen 10 targets from Minshew immediately. So I think that he's definitely in play. Stroud, I don't know, because he got sacked like 6 times. It was a lot of garbage time stuff. It makes me a little wary to stack him, although I do love that game environment. I do love Tank Dell. Tank Dell's an absolute stud.
He hooked you up last week. That was one of your big calls.
Yeah, Dell. I wish I played more Dell. Like, I played him on every team and higher stake stuff, but I didn't. And he was like 2% owned. But
Going to be a lot higher this week. He's being in cash lineups this week on DK.
Yeah, exactly. And in the Millie, where I was like 3x the field, but I just need to start locking plays like Tank Dell, which I might do at Roshan today, I think, which is bold, but you got to be bold in the Millie, right? So
that's not my streets, but like, yeah, you're shooting for the top. Yeah. You obviously know better than myself and Tim. Tim, do you play? You bother playing the Millionaire Maker? Maybe throw one lineup in there, just a chip on a chair.
I maybe put like 1 to 3 in there. Yeah. All my teams in there just to be stupid, but I do it. Bobby, what about some other cheap quarterbacks? Like, do you have any interest in Andy Dalton, CJ Stroud, those kind of guys?
Yeah, so that's the CJ Stroud one. I just I could play him if I go that low, but I just don't. He's going to be in my pool whether I get to him. I'm not really sure, just because, like I said, it came in a lot of garbage time. Jacksonville's D is pretty good. The game's in Jacksonville, correct?
Yeah.
So yeah, Stroud I'm worried about. Minshew would be my favorite. I can't play Andy Dalton in the year 2023. I just can't do it.
Imagine pairing Andy Dalton with Adam Thielen in 2023.
I do think you can play Geno. I do think Geno can be played. I wouldn't do it, but they're like top corners out, I'm pretty sure. Like, and then the what's his RSN or whatever his name is? He's been getting hurt because of 2 tight end sets. Like, he's going to be out there because
JSN.
JSN. Yeah. So I think Geno's in play with Lockett, Metcalf, or JSN. Yeah. I do like JSN a little bit, even though I didn't know his name. But yeah. So yeah, I think Geno's one of the lower owned ones you can play. But no Andy Dalton. You can't play a guy with no soul, right? It's tough.
He's the Red Rocket, right? Good nickname.
He's a ginger.
No? I mean, so he's a savvy vet. He's a game manager. You don't get any fantasy points for that, though, right?
You can't play a ginger in the NFL. That was never going to work. I don't know how he lasted 10 years.
I'm trying to think of a counterpoint to that. There's got to be somebody that, there's got to be the exception to the rule. But you mentioned Stroud. You can get a really cheap, like you're talking about, cheap stack. You can get Collins, Dell, Stroud, and run it back with ETN and Ridley, and still can make a decent lineup around that. Who was the other cheap stack? Yeah, Minshew against Baltimore. We haven't talked about that game. I think that's one more. We can't talk about every single game. I'm just kind of throwing out the most important games. 43.5 is the total. Baltimore, 8-point favorites. They lost another running back. It's the Gus bus. Melvin Gordon has been elevated. Maybe we finally see Lamar actually run one in. We haven't seen that all season, I don't believe. Minshew for Indianapolis. I think it's actually an upgrade for everybody else because now Richardson will not be running in touchdowns. Moss took a 98% snap share last game, the only running back to actually touch the ball. Minshew loved himself some Pittman as well. Downs is really cheap if you want to go that route. You're talking about this game, Bobby. I like the Baltimore side. The Indy secondary looks pretty terrible. How much will they have to do? How much will they get pushed? They're 8-point favorites. How are you handling Indy Baltimore?
How am I handling Indy Baltimore? So the weather I love this Baltimore game. This was like the elite Lamar game for my best ball teams prior to this weather news. I have way too much Lamar, and honestly, way too much Devin A-Chain. I don't know why I have so much of him, but yeah, this was a great game for pace up spot. Indy's playing fast. Baltimore is going to be more condensed this week with no Odell. Indy's 2 corners are just like complete journeymen, and Tank Dell and Nico Collins. Well, I think they're very good NFL receivers and underrated. They ate them up last week. So did CJ Stroud. So I think a guy like Zay Flowers is going completely overlooked. He'll probably have a very big week. I'm going to try to be 2x the field on him. Andrews is another guy who's in a great position. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. And Tim kind of hit on this at the beginning of the show, like Andrews, Kelsey, Hawkinson, who's getting squeezed because someone's getting squeezed. And whoever's getting squeezed, like I want to play at a high clip, right? Because I think they're all in fantastic spots. Another tight end I like in this game is Grayson. His snaps have been up, his targets have been up, so he's you can pair him with Minshew, but Michael Pittman is definitely the guy with Humphreys out in that safety that they have that I think is going to get a boatload of targets. And the mid-range for receiver, I feel like the narrative around the industry is it isn't the greatest, but I think there are some spots like Pittman, Moore. There's a couple of them like in that range at wide receiver that I think you can get to. Zay Flowers. I think these guys are going overlooked because of construction, and they're guys I want to try to get overweight on.
You mentioned Zay Flowers. The other Zay Jones is out, which makes Christian Kirk really, really strong against Houston. We talked about Jacksonville. I don't know how much you point out and stressed Kirk, but coming off a monster game as well, they definitely worked him in. And Zay, I think, dropped a 0. He was hurt in that game, and he almost caught a couple of touchdowns. At least one I saw. Where just didn't
I played him in single entry, so yeah, he had a 0. That was
my
fun.
highest scoring team had Zay Jones on it last week too. It's these things happen. He's gone, and I think that helps Kirk. What do you have, Tim, as far as Baltimore and Indianapolis? How do you feel about Zach Moss? Is Moss, was he the guy? Was he in your cash lineup?
Yeah. So this is actually the second fastest paced game according to the Blitz game level factors, and it's really not that far behind Chargers, Minnesota. So I think there is a lot of merit to getting exposure to this game. I really like Minshew to Pittman quite a bit. I think Josh Downs is super interesting as a value play. I think he's only 3,500. So I think he's super, super cheap. He's a really good play for that cheap price tag. I've already said that I think Zach Moss is firmly in play in all formats. But yeah, getting to Lamar. I think Zay Flowers. I think that was a great call by Bobby.
Beckham's out. I'm not sure if he said that.
What's that?
Beckham is out for Baltimore, which should elevate, Flowers and Bateman a little bit. Aguilar, if you want to be crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to touch on, talking about which tight end is going to get squeezed. Right now, we have Durham Smythe as the highest owned tight end, followed by Kelsey, then Ertz. So, I think it's clearly going to be Hawkinson and Mark Andrews that are going to get squeezed. And I think Mark Andrews is going to be the lowest owned out of the bunch. That's what we have right now in our RG projected ownership. So, getting to some Lamar, Mark Andrews stacks, I think is a very, very contrarian play. Getting away from the higher owned Chargers Minnesota game, probably the higher owned Jacksonville game also. So I think they make for a really strong stack.
By the way, Matt in chat is on to us, Bobby. Answer this question, Bobby. I think Matt's just on to us.
I don't understand what he's talking about. I want the example of what I cherry picked.
How come all touts say don't use last week as a reference if he ever had a bad game? But if a player had a good game, you guys say, basically he's saying that, like, hey, we're taking a victory lap if they do good. And if they do bad, it's like, variance. These things happen. That's the tout game, Bobby.
He's right. That's the tout game.
I
just want to know what I'm trying to figure out what I actually said. That was the cherry pick.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure but what he said, but I read that comment.
Give me the example, or he's just saying this in chat because he's. I don't feel like I just did that. Did I? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
You're touting bad is what you're doing. Oh, sorry, Matt.
Matt, if you don't mind, hit the like button. I don't know, just
hit the like button.
It's just in general. Just in general, Bobby.
He's got a point. Touts do tout. Touts are gonna tout. You know.
Yeah. No, it's a fair point. It's a fair assessment.
It's not like we're out here making millions of dollars touting. Like I definitely don't have to be on here just to tout. I'll tell you that.
You get paid for this, Bobby?
I barely.
I don't know. I gotta talk to Devin.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about some good chalk, bad chalk stuff. Again, we're still on for like 25 minutes or so. I did say I would read off some of the bold calls. The bold calls that were sent to me. Tim and Bobby, feel free to chime in when you hear one. Chime in when you hear one you like. Okay, I'm just going to run them off. I'm going to shout them out. Alex Santi, a contributor here at RG. Tyreek, 203. Do we like this bold call? Feel free to chime in when you like a bold call. We don't like that one, apparently. Dapper Don says Hayden. Oh, go ahead.
No. It is a bold call. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. I just think it's a little too far fetched for me.
Well, I mean, there's a fine line though, right? With touting, like Erik was saying, I wasn't being bold enough before. Now you're saying Alex is being too bold.
I'm trying not to be a bad tout like Bobby. Okay, Dean. Like I'm trying my best here.
Well, you touted nothing last week. You weren't in the show, so you're
you touted nothing. Well, you can't. You're out of this argument because you were hiding from a storm that didn't even happen.
What are you talking?
You get hit. I didn't even get hit with this storm.
We live in different states, Bobby.
But I was out. I was in my pool, actually, to be perfectly honest. There was no storm. In Maine, there was a storm. I'm just joking.
You thought I was going to knock out every state in the Northeast just equally? All right. So Dapper Don says, this seems a little ambitious. Hayden Hurst, 20 DK points in the winning Millie lineup. Stop me when you like a take. Mingo goes bingo, which I've never heard that before. 6 catches, 69 yards, and a touchdown. Is that bold, though? I like the Mingo goes bingo, but like 6 catches, 69 yards, and a touchdown.
Woolen's out, right? Woolen, their corner, I think, is sitting. I'm pretty positive. So, like, I don't know. I could see one of those. The thing is, like, they're all attached to Andy Dalton. Let's be real. You know what I mean? Andy Dalton.
And again, what color is his hair again? Do you want to point that out one more time?
He's a redhead.
Whatever's left of it. But I was saying 6 for 69 is not that bold if we're going to really if we're calling this stuff out. Hey, Kenneth Payne saying Cole Turner, top 5 tight end in the main slate. Logan Thomas is hurt. I know Erik's going to be on. And like speaking of best ball, Erik was touting himself some Cole Turner. He must be excited about potentially Cole Turner season being unleashed. We'll see. Again, feel free to stop me when you like one of these takes. Braxton Berrios from Darren, 2 touchdowns today for Miami and a Miami win. Well, the Miami win's not bold.
I think that's a completely bold call, and I think it's a good call, too.
I was going to say that I like that one. That's the one I've liked the most so far.
I think Berrios is very good at football. I don't know if that translates to DFS and fantasy points, but I think he's a very good football player.
Does anybody feel strongly as far as Craycraft versus Berrios? Because I don't. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they're both like equally fine, but I would love to know which one is like the stronger lean, but I don't have a good answer for that. David Lynch says Jake Ferguson finishes as tight end 1. That's bold. Is it going to happen though?
I like him to finish like possibly like tight end like top 3.
Okay.
I like tight end 1's too far, but I think he could easily be a top 3.
It's another question of it's similar to that Kansas City-Chicago game. It's like, at what point does Dallas let up against Arizona? And like, you never really know. Arizona was up 20-0 versus the Giants at the half. I know Dallas better than the Giants, but same sort of point. They're 13-point favorites, and they're theoretically going to smash against Arizona. And they're going to get those 28 points somehow for Dallas. So why can't it be through Ferguson? I know Pollard's the most likely scenario, or CeeDee Lamb. And we'll finish with Smash Adams saying Desmond Ridder in the $1 million Million Maker winning lineup. I think we all kind of like that mostly.
I can't get. I'm no.
Good chalk, bad chalk. Good chalk, bad chalk. Let's go running back. Tim, I'll start with you. I'm going to give a refresh as far as our ownership stuff. Let's see if we got a new batch. I know we got one around 10 o'clock on the East Coast. Let's see if something else came in with the Gibbs news. I wonder if they're reacting to that. Maybe they're still tinkering and figuring it out. Let's see what we have here, Tim. Josh Kelly is currently our highest projected owned running back on DK at 26%. ETN at 21. Pollard at 21. It's pretty flat. Gibbs at 17. I think that might creep up a little bit. Ford at 15. A.J. Dillon, which that's one of the things we don't know yet. I think we're predicting that Jones in. Are we not? Do we not have Jones in? I thought we did. We're not sure if Aaron Jones is going to play or not. Actives and actives 11:30.
He's not in projections, Dean.
Okay. I didn't think he was officially ruled out, but like he's assumed like he's not going to play.
He must be doubtful then.
We're not playing AJ Dillon anyways, correct? Like there's way.
Well, that's just what I was going to say.
I don't think so.
I was just going to say that. Like he's 15% owned. Like I wouldn't play him. Like so, if you consider that chalky, I'd say that's bad chalk. Like we have Zach Moss at lower ownership than AJ Dillon. I'd much rather play Zach Moss.
Yeah,
I'd rather not play either. Is that a bad take? Like,
I mean that's up to you. I mean,
I have a question. Can we talk about Zach Moss more? Like,
sure.
Is Zach Moss good? Like outside of the workload, he's going to see at 5.5. Do we expect Zach Moss to really repeat basically what he did last week? I know we're getting in a Matt's conversation. He played good.
I touted him last week actually, so I can talk about this.
Yeah.
So you said, is he good? Like, does it matter? Is my response. Like he's better at running the football than us, right? Like it's, is he a great running back compared to all your running backs? Probably not. But the most important thing at running backs is volume, is getting on the field. And if he's going to take basically every single rep there in Indy, how good does he have to be? And also he can catch like 5 or 6 dump offs. Like that's something that's in play as well. Probably not the best matchup there against Baltimore, but I don't know how good he is, and I don't know how much it matters. Is sort of my.
So do you prefer him to Kelly because his pass game role is already like concrete, whereas Kelly's we have no idea, and it doesn't seem like it is currently.
It's weird they didn't like the Chargers don't just make so Eckler's down and Kelly's gonna play that role. That's not what they do, right? Because Eckler would catch a bunch of passes and Kelly probably won't. I think that's a question for Tim. Kelly versus Moss. I think you have Moss ahead of him, or you're playing both. You're playing both, right?
I'm leaning on playing both in cash games, but I mean, if we're talking about tournaments, there's definitely different ways you can go about it. It's just the game environment of the Chargers Vikings game. I want as much exposure to that game as possible. And I agree with Dean's assessment on Moss. It doesn't matter if he's quote unquote good or not. Like he's going to be on the field a ton, and he's 5'5". Like,
but are there guys in that range that can beat them? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like Breece Hall is not going to be played at 5'6", and I think he's honest. I would play him in a vacuum, like over Moss every time. You know what I mean? Like I feel like his snaps are on the uptick. We just seen Mostert have 2 touchdowns versus this team. I feel like construction based is the biggest decision point on the slate is what you do with these two, the low end running back positions, which was the same thing last week. I just can't figure out how to like parse between these guys. That's what I'm trying to do. I didn't mean to cut you off, Tim.
No, it's good. It's good. Like, I mean, I also think that like Gus Edwards is pretty interesting in that same price range also. I don't know. It's tough, but I mean, it's all about game environment for me. Like I know a couple people are on Keandre Miller too at 4,300. I'm not willing to do that even in 3 max. I don't even know how much exposure I'd get to him in a 20 max setting. I'd much rather live in this 5-6K range if I'm looking to save at running back. But and then we haven't I know Bobby touched on Jerome Ford a little bit. But we have him as the 5th highest owned running back, and he's going up against one of the best rush defenses in football. Like I don't really think that I have much interest in him. So again, that just leads me to more and more Zach Moss. It's just I don't know. Like I think Jerome Ford is probably a better running back, but I think that again. This Baltimore Indy game is the second fastest paced game on the whole slate, whereas that Cleveland Tennessee game is going to be one of the slowest games on the slate. So I'd rather play Zach Moss.
Yeah, no, I get you.
Where are you at on Ford, Bobby? Because he is pretty interesting. I know some people are afraid of Hunt coming in, but like coming off the street, there's a reason why
Hunt's not playing. I think Hunt's inactive, right? Like I don't think Hunt's.
He might be. Well. He's currently in like the projected starting lineup. on the RG page, or not starting lineup.
Yeah,
just like
I mean
players
we
available.
have Hunt
He might be
projected.
inactive.
We have Hunt projected for 5 points.
Okay, so yeah, that would make me want to go away from Ford a little bit. If it
You
was
think
just
Hunt really
Ford,
gets much? I don't think Hunt gets much if he dresses.
it seems like
Coming
this
up-
coaching staff really likes Ford, right? Like he looked good. And the recency bias of last week versus Tennessee would lean for me to play Ford more because I just think he's a better running back than what we see. He's utilized in a different way than how we see Josh Kelly utilized, or how we saw Josh Kelly utilized last week. But with Hunt there, it kind of throws a wrench in it a little bit. I'm just like, I'm having an issue with these running backs. Just
we have Hunt projected for four rushing attempts and 1.81 targets.
So 4,800 for Ford versus 5.4 for Moss, or 5.5 for Kelly, for that matter.
But
like,
if
can
you
he
want to look
come
at the
in a
last
range
game,
what's his range of outcomes versus them? That's where I would make my decision, where I thought he could kind of finish based on where I think they're going to finish, right? Because it's a salary game too. I like the pace call on Moss. Like, that pace is going to be up, so it kind of leads to Moss at 5.4. Maybe Kelly, I should be more down on Kelly than what I currently am. But yeah, this is like the intricate point of roster construction, right? So you got to get this right if you want to win any money. Yeah, I don't know. For me, maybe it's Kelly that's the fade, I guess, or come on in underweight. I don't want people to see my teams, and I have Kelly. It's going to be an up to lock decision for me.
So New Orleans, right, with Williams going on IL, Kamara still a week away from his suspension. Tony Jones, like a fringe, running back in the NFL. Kendra Miller is healthy. He was a full go. This will be his first game in the NFL. I'm really curious what they give him. It's silly to point to like Moss, like, oh, they gave Moss a full work. Well, that's a different team, different situation. But I think this is like a high range of outcomes, Tim, as far as Miller, how much he gets. And yeah, they're going to run Taysom Hill. I think is also interesting on DK, where he's 3-3 because tight end, not a ton of opportunity cost. And, he's going to Hill's going to run the ball 6, 7, 8, 9 times. He's probably going to have a couple of premium rushes, inside the 5. Like, if that happens, he's one of the first guys that gets a crack at it. So he's in play for me. But Kendra Miller also, I believe, was the third running back taken in the draft. I'm not a draft guy.
He was. I mean, definitely a high draft capital guy. We have him projected for 9.5 rush attempts, 32 yards, and 2 targets. So, I mean,
in
that's
the
not.
pool?
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe if I'm building out 20 or more, I guess. I'm just worried this is going to be a three-headed monster. You know what I mean, for the backfield for the Saints. So I just, man, I don't know. Like, I don't love it.
Bobby, what are you doing here? You're running a bunch of lineups. You get some Taysom Hill. You getting some Kendra Miller.
I'm definitely getting Taysom. I'm not getting Kendry.
No. Bigger opportunity cost for Miller, obviously, than it is for Hill. But speak to that. I would say
so. Yeah.
Is that the reason why you're getting some Hill? Just because is it the path to him doing things as much compared to his contemporaries, compared to guys in his position, is much easier than for Miller to get there? And Miller's just a big unknown.
Hill could end up being like the lead situation. Like, Tony Jones isn't the greatest, and they have trust with Hill. I think Hill gets the high value touches, for what it's worth, where they want to score points and the coaches trust somebody back there. And I think it could be Hill. Like, I think Hill's going to get a goal line touch. So at 3-3, yeah, I'd prefer Hill.
And like, it's likely not going to happen, but he also can throw a touchdown or even catch one. Like, he can do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably not going to happen, but like, what other tight end can possibly throw a touchdown?
I have way more interest in Hill than I do in Miller, like, straight up.
He's 3-3 too. Like, it's very, if we're talking about these cash, you're talking about Smythe and Ertz. Like, Hill could outscore all these guys.
Yeah,
and he's like an extra running back at the tight end position,
He can break a 40-yard touchdown. Like, that's something he can do.
Yeah,
because you have to consider the position too, where it's like I don't mind taking a shot at tight end, whereas like running back's going to be very, very important.
All right, so receivers. Let's talk about some receivers. Jefferson expected to be the most expensive and the most popular, just barely over Mike Williams. Mike Williams, number 2, 22%, 21% respectively on DK. Christian Kirk, now in the cash game conversation at 5.4. Tyreek is getting 17%. Keenan Allen, 15%. Ridley at 15%. Like, if you're a flop lag guy, it certainly feels like Ridley. And he's another guy that could have had a huge week last week. He was super heavily owned last week, but the matchup this week looks awesome, and I think you're supposed to get more than the field on Ridley. Pittman as a run back's getting 13%. I'm looking for our cheapies. Okay, Dell at 10%. Jaden Reed at 10% as well. Josh Reynolds at about 10%. Tim, how are you handling this? I'm assuming you had Tank Dell in your cash lineup build. I think you did.
I mean, I don't think I showed it, Dean, but I mean, if you want me to tell, probably I am though. But it depends on, I think I am going to pivot from, Ertz to Smythe. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with Tank, but I mean, I do like Tank quite a bit today. He would be my favorite, cash game cheapie if I'm looking for a really super, super cheap wide receiver, which I do think you need this week.
What if you don't have tank money? But is Craycraft a 3-4? Like, if you need a couple $100, or you're kind of asking for it, is that a mistake?
No, I think that's fine. I also think I'm blanking on his name now. For the Colts, Downs, I think.
Yeah.
Josh
Downs.
Josh Downs. I think that he would be another pretty strong play as well.
There's Nelson Aguilar in that range too. He ran a good bit of snaps with Odell out. That game's paced up, like Tim said, so I think he's someone you can consider too. I think I'd prefer the Miami guys, and obviously Dell ahead of him, obviously, but I'm just throwing a guy out there.
I would like that game so much more if it was on the turf in Indianapolis. Probably closer, no elements, but I guess ownership would adjust as well. But again, I want to see what Roth has to say. I don't think it was that concerned. It looks bad on the lineups page. It's 90% chance of rain or 80% chance of rain. And again, I assume he's going to update this at some point. Just still currently just yellow in Baltimore. Bobby, receiving wise, biggest stands one way or the other as far as you're going to be way over, way under. Who are your biggest stands when it comes to receivers today?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be way over on Calvin Ridley. That's going to be my guy. Going to chase last week. I had a good bit of him. I just like in this. I really like Jacksonville. I like Lawrence, like Ridley, like Kirk, like Ingram. I think it's super condensed. ETN's a good play. I do worry about ETN's targets. I didn't think they were going to be sticky in week 2. They weren't. I wonder how that kind of trends going forward. I also think that Tank Bigsby losing the fumble week 1, it may have hurt. He was out there for 16 snaps, I'm pretty sure, but he didn't touch the ball once. That may change. So I don't know if it's going to really. ETN seems like he's going to be the guy, but I'm just saying maybe it was a punishment week for the rookie. I really like Lawrence stacks.
Tim, I'd ask you the same. Is there a certain receiver? You're talking about making Minnesota stacks with the Chargers, right? A lot of people are doing that. What is your differentiator? Have you figured it out just yet? Is there a certain player that maybe a 10%er or a 5%er that you're going to be relying on to be the person that separates you from the other Minnesota Charger stacks?
If Amari Cooper is really going to be 8% owned, I really like him in tournaments. Michael Pittman is a similar guy in that same kind of mid-range to get off of some of that kind of mid-range chalk. I do love Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk is probably going to be in my cash game, but if I'm looking to play GPPs, getting off some of that Mike Williams, getting off some of that Christian Kirk for a Michael Pittman or Amari Cooper, something like that, I think that's a really strong play. Jordan Addison's currently only showing up with 9% ownership. Zay Flowers, like Bobby mentioned, 6%. I absolutely love that play. Michael Thomas, he seems healthy, right? He's getting a ton of targets, and he's only going to be 5% owned.
And Carr cannot throw downfield too, which is
yeah.
He's getting those 7-yard catches.
Yeah, which is huge. Right, right.
On DK,
Yeah.
you'll take it. Yeah,
exactly. So I think Michael Thomas is a really strong play. Like this whole like 5 to 6K range is very, very strong. And I don't think that you like have to eat the chalk with Mike Williams and Christian Kirk.
Let's see. Bobby, Greg's got a question in chat. FanDuel are both 6,300. Well, who do you prefer, Sutton or Flowers? I think I know what your answer is.
Sutton or Flowers? Definitely Flowers. Yeah. Someone said it's going to be raining there. They do a lot of like short passes to Flowers, and if a guy slips, man, they're not catching that guy. I can tell you that much. I do think we have like an interesting kind of viewpoint on this slate where I think a lot of the industry currently doesn't want to play these mid-range receivers, and I really love Tim's calls like Pittman, Cooper. I feel like the mid-range is somewhere where you can kind of get different on the slate at the receiver position. And they're in the range of those chalk running backs. So playing a wide receiver in your flex might not be the worst option. I didn't run like the sims that I usually run to like see if that's yet. I'll do that afterwards. But wide receiver in the flex is usually something you want to do in larger field stuff. So yeah, I don't mind these. I think this mid-range, if you hit on the right plays in the mid-range, whether it's wide receiver or running back, you're going to be in a good spot. Especially when we're getting these wide receivers so low owned. And like you said, like Mike Williams is going to suck up so much ownership to where there's like all these guys could beat Mike Williams, right? Like I feel like they could,
yes.
or and they're cheaper. So let's take some shots,
He has those ceiling games, but he also has those games where he just kind of disappears. He has those games where he gets hurt. He always seems to pull something every time he goes up for a catch. Yeah, but I understand why he's hitting so many optimals. Hey, is Watson somebody you're considering? You guys both mentioned Cooper. This feels like the game where, like, no excuses. Tennessee gives you all the passing you want, right? He's been horrific for 2 years now, however you want to go far back. But theoretically, there's still something there. I think I heard you say no already, Bobby. Tim, you got anything as far as Watson? You're not making enough lamps to consider him, I imagine.
I mean, this is supposed to be a good spot for him. He's only 6'1". He has shown nothing, like absolutely nothing. So it's like, I just can't, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think, like, if I made 150, would I have 2.5% to match the field? Maybe, because I do like Amari Cooper in this game. So maybe I would have a Watson to Cooper stack in there. But I mean, this should be a good spot for him. But he's just shown no ability to have any kind of ceiling.
I just want to say something. We have 600 watching. We got SquirrelPatrol, the Millie Maker winner this week, coming on, giving the flavor. We can't get over 100 likes. We have 98 likes. That's not a good ratio. Let's go. Let's get these likes up.
Is there like some kind of green jacket ceremony? Like, have you welcomed Squirrel to the $1 Million Club, Bobby?
We'll welcome him. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's in the club now.
Yeah. Myself and Tim, I guess one day, I suppose we don't play it. I don't play the $1 Million contest. So, it seems like a fun dream, I suppose. But not only that, he banked it on a 2-game slate. He had the nuts, right? I don't know if it was the nuts or not, but it was a solo ship, which is just spectacular. I have partook in a $1 Million takedown before with like 1,000 friends, right? In air quotes. But that's like a very misleading.
Our likes just flew up, by the way, for Squirrel 146. Thank you, chat, for making it happen. I think we get to 200.
Erik Beimfohr will be joining him as well, and you're going to get to hear Erik tout. Not to speak for Erik, but he's probably excited about playing Cole Turner. I don't know.
I will say this. Erik solidified my Tank Dell take last week. He said it best. He was like, Tank Dell's way too cheap. He's not going to, on the show, he said, Tank Dell is not going to be at this price for long, right? And then I was like, all right, I'm all in. Like, I just absolutely smashed Tank Dell. So, yeah, definitely listen, Erik, very sharp guy. Cole Turner is going to be in a good spot this week, right? Like, I could play some Cole Turner. Make sure you get some Cole Turner in your Bills stacks, in your Washington stacks if you're playing those guys.
Is he ahead of Bates? I don't know. Like 1-on-1.
He's got the rapport with
Sam Howell
QB there. Yeah, Howell.
Yeah, I mean, if you're MMA stuff or like tournament stuff or just trying to win a moneymaker, Cole Turner's the kind of guy that certainly could and almost definitely is not going to be in my lineup. So I'm going to listen to Erik, and I guess he'll come on and tell you. Maybe he's not on him today. Who knows? But I know he was talking about him during best ball season. Are you still – you're always wishy-washy in this, Bobby. Are you still a best ball influencer, or have you jumped off that
I am a best ball influencer, but I'm the worst best ball influencer that you could ever ask for. And I feel like earlier in the show, I was wishing for injuries. Yeah, I've totally become a best ball guy, I guess.
But there's a lot of bad ones, too. You're saying amongst all the terrible best ball influencers, you are the worst because there's a lot of competition down there.
There's a lot of bad ones, yeah, for sure. But, I haven't been good this year, I can tell you that much. I was hoping on this Lamar game. I have way too much Lamar. Now it's raining. I can't predict this stuff 8 months out. Need a farmer's almanac,
I got the Gray Sports Almanac. I don't have the Farmer's Almanac. I got the wrong almanac, unfortunately. Tim, do you have a hot take for us? Like you want to close the show? A bold call, a hot take, a tater, if you will. What do you want to will into existence?
I really like Josh Downs to be like the best like value wide receiver, like over Tank Dell.
And everybody else, the Dolphins guys.
Yeah. Yep.
Reynolds, I guess he's kind of on the fringe of like he's a little bit more than 4K. But Downs is your favorite player as far as the cheapies?
Yeah, I might go down to him instead of Tank Dell.
Are you making is it a run back for like a Lamar stack? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, well, I'm even thinking about playing him in cash too.
Interesting. In addition to Dell? Or just
no, over Dell.
Can you expand on why you like Downs so much?
Just the pace of that game, like we talked about. So it's just, the blitz has him for I think 6 targets. I think we're closer to 5. But the blitz has him for 40 receiving yards. I think it's a really good spot, just like game wise. And so I think I really like Josh Downs, and I don't think he's gonna be way lower owned than like the Tank Dell Dolphins guys. So that's my hot take.
So I just pulled up the scores and odds app here. 32.5 is the over under for Downs receiving yards. I'm curious how that compares to Dell. I'm guessing Dell is higher.
What was it for Downs, Dean?
32.5. If that's something you want to look at, if that's something you care about.
Yeah.
The player prop market is not the sharpest sometimes, but it is pretty sharp this time. 2 hours until kickoff, and Dell is at 35 for what it's worth.
Right. And then you got to consider ownership too. Like
not in cash though.
No. But I mean in tournaments though. I got to look up Dell's ownership.
Yeah, he's going to be pretty popular.
10% versus 1% for Downs.
We got the man of the hour. It's still the man of the hour. It's still probably on that high of the $1 million victory. A Monday night. It's SquirrelPatrol. What's up, Squirrel? Welcome to the show.
Not much. I heard some Desmond Ritter slander going on in the with you guys, but I'm gonna let it pass. I'm having a good week. So.
I mean, the thing is, you got to throw the ball to be an effective quarterback. But I think he did predict he's going to run the ball a lot, and he's going to.
I bet you Squirrel's playing him with the tight end there that everyone can't seem to get right, and he's going to hit. Yeah,
he's due, right? Like they're due. They're due to throw the ball, and Kyle Pitts is due for some touchdown receptions. So.
I promise you're not going to hit because I'm also playing those two guys. So if it was just you, if I were playing London or something, you would be hitting. But yeah, I agree.
Erik's here as well. Erik, we're going to step aside in just a second, but I have touted a couple times, not touted, but just kind of mentioned. I know when you were doing your best ball stuff on Spike Week, you would talk about Cole Turner. Is it Cole Turner season or whatever that possibly could be today? Maybe the absence of the number 1 tight end there for Washington.
I think maybe he's definitely going to split time is the problem with John. Bates is like more the blocker. I know he caught passes last week, but Bates is like a really good blocking tight end, whereas Turner was like a glorified wide receiver in college. He's kind of like a really, really, really poor man's Dalton Kincaid or something like that. So, but I do think like if they fall behind, get into a passing script, you'll see more Turner and less. So like if you're building, Josh Allen stacks or something, I like Turner, but we're hoping for the best ball shares. I don't know if we'll have them today because I'm going to subject myself to the torture that is Kyle Pitts, I think.
Tim, Bobby, anything else before you step aside and make way for Squirrel and Erik?
No, good luck, guys. Congrats, Squirrel. Want to say congrats on the Millie, and let's take some stuff down with some RG badges today.
Yeah, congrats, Squirrel. Good luck, everybody.
That was Tim and Bobby. This is Squirrel and Erik. Good luck today. Win something, win some money. Hit that like button, subscribe, turn on the notifications, do all those things. Hit all the buttons. Erik, take it away.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Of course, we will get into all of the $1 million takes from my guy, John, a.k.a. SquirrelPatrol. But welcome. Thank you for joining us. GPP Final Takes is the show here this morning on RotoGrinders. We're going to bring you maybe a little bit of a different style show if you have not watched before. We're definitely going to run through all the hot button items specifically for tournaments. If you're playing cash games, you have cash questions, of course you can pop them in the chat. We'll answer them to the best of our knowledge, but we're mostly focused from a tournament angle. Obviously, you have me hosting the show and one of the best, if not the best tournament player on the planet with you, SquirrelPatrol, John Breslin, fresh off of a monster Millie Maker win with one of the grossest teams I've ever seen in my entire life to win $1 million. But sometimes that's how it goes. And we'll get into a little bit of that today with both of our takes that we agree upon a lot on this particular slate. But again, if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have anything, please leave them in the chat. We'll get to as many questions as we can. What we're going to try to do is bounce around from like key theme, key decision point, key player, stack, game, whatever, and move around the most important things that you need to decide upon for your tournament lineups today. Maybe a little bit of game by game and a little bit of position by position, but we're going to try to hit everything that is, the most notable theme of this week. But the most notable theme for John for this week was a monster tournament win. And I got to ask, did you do anything fun since, or do you have anything fun planned to celebrate your big win this week?
Not really, not yet, honestly. Yeah, because it's football season, right? So focused on that. But I'll say I said it, in the RotoGrinders Slack, and I'll say it again. Like, it's not a coincidence, right? Like we're getting the show handed off from a guy that won $1 million prize. We're going to hand the show off to a guy that won $1 million prize. Right. I did the show Monday night with a different guy that won $1 million prize. Did a baseball show Wednesday with a different guy from RotoGrinders that won $1 million prize. So it's what we do here. The show is free. The tools and some of the content behind the paywall is not, requires a subscription. But I love DFS, so glad to have won the $1 million.
Yeah, for sure. We're patting ourselves on the back here. Not me. I haven't won $1 million, but I do think it is. It's pretty awesome. You can go from show to show, sport to sport, and you have multi-million dollar, multi-time $1 million winners. You have what I also really love about it, and I promise we'll get to the slate where this is kind of a little bit of a theme, is a lot of the folks who have won here and produced content here come about all this stuff from a very different viewpoint. Like, I think about things differently than you do, and you think about things differently than Bobby does, and Bobby thinks about things differently, right, than Cheese does, and et cetera, and Chop, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't mean to leave anybody out because everybody is doing awesome work. I also want to shout out the Scores and Odds team. If you're interested in sports betting, whether it's props, sides, totals, futures, parlays, pick'em, if you're not in a legal sport, there's pick'em stuff out there on scoresandodds.com. The team over there is absolutely crushing it. I make sure and view it every single day to see what all these smart guys are putting their money on and profiting on. And it's just it's pretty awesome. Like you said, you can just show up and get really different, unique perspectives from people who are winning money doing all of these things. So it's a lot of fun. We will try to win you some money today. And I want to ask you this because usually there's like something, and I do think there's probably a game today, but usually there's like one theme of the slate where it's like, right. I think back to like when Dalvin Cook would miss and we had Alexander Madison, who now we have Madison in a totally different situation. But, we would have something like that. Zeke's out, Tony Pollard. What do you do? How do you construct your teams? Whatever. This week, I feel like there's a bunch of guys out. There's maybe one game that stands out, but a bunch of like interesting situations where if we didn't have all of them together on one slate, you might have just like that one guy that's 70% owned in tournaments. But there's so many kind of different moving parts with running backs out and a shootout game and some wide receivers out. What's kind of the main theme, the main situation that you're using to kind of drive your decisions in tournaments this week?
So I think it's the first Coors Field slate of the season. I've said it that where we've got that one game. It's a 54-point total. It's like I think maybe 53.5 now, but 5.5, 6 points higher than any other game. And I think you need to address that game in your lineup, or understand that you are leaving consciously leaving off a game that far exceeds any other total. That doesn't mean you have to play Kirk Cousins. I think he's going to be a very popular quarterback. And actually, I approached this week really looking at it, kind of shaking my head, even on Thursday, Friday, going like, I don't know how you get away from Cousins and this game. But then as I started diving into the slate, I found more and more stuff that I liked, and I made the Desmond Ridder joke. Like I noticed on Friday, I was writing up the expert survey, and I was doing something researching about how the Lions give up tons of rushing yards to quarterbacks, and I could see you were in the other column writing up Desmond Ridder and this game. I'm like, yeah, dang it, so all right, I got to find some other pieces from this game. But I think there's intelligent ways you can get away from the Chargers Minnesota game, but I think you need to address it in your lineups. Like the majority of my lineups have some piece from that game.
Yeah, and I love that, and it is funny because we don't know. Oftentimes we don't stumble onto the exact same thing, but there's, like you said, I totally agree from a macro perspective, and even like a little bit of a micro perspective with certain players in that game is like, especially if you're building 150 teams or hundreds of teams across sites. I just don't really know how you can get away from. Right, I'm not an MME wizard. If you're underweight, overweight, lock button, matching the field, whatever. But I don't know how you can get away with like just playing like almost none of that game and just saying, oh, it's the chalk, hopefully the chalk fails. It's like, I don't think you have to do that. And I think the Ridder thing is, it doesn't have to be specifically Desmond Ridder or the Atlanta Falcons if you don't want that torture. But I think it's an example of something that you can have your cake and eat it too. It's like, that's what we want to do in tournaments. You don't know. There's no real rational reason to just say you can't play Justin Jefferson today, or you can't play Keenan Allen, or you can't play Josh Kelly. It's like, no, of course, as our good friend Jordan Cooper would say, lineups, not players. But that's where in particular, the cheap quarterbacks and these other games where I can kind of stack up another game or just have another stack or shoot. If you want to play Ridder naked and you don't, depending upon the tournament that you're in, and I'm counting on his rushing and John's counting on his rushing, and he runs for 2 touchdowns, but he's super cheap and gives you access to all those. You want Justin Jefferson, you want Tyreek Hill or TJ Hawkinson or Keenan Allen, right? Or Stephon Diggs looks good in tournaments, et cetera, et cetera. There's all these guys, and you can still build smartly, and yet you're going to end up being contrarian with chalk pieces in your lineup because you constructed your teams a little bit different and just attack the slate just a little bit different, right? Like you can attack the Falcons are scoring 25 points a game. They have a running quarterback. Every single player on their offense besides Bijan is totally free and completely cheap. And they're playing the Lions defense, who has been terrible for a long time. We thought got better. And now they lost a bunch of dudes to injury in a dome on the turf, right? It's like all these things are lining up and no one's doing it. So you don't have to love the Falcons, but I think thinking about it that way is the way that I really like thinking about it. Let's talk really quickly about the Chargers Vikings thing and dive a little bit deeper into it, because I think it's kind of very interesting because not all these guys can be stone chalk, right? You can't have Herbert and Cousins and Josh Kelly and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Justin Jefferson and Addison, right? So how are you kind of thinking about all the different pieces in this game? How are you fitting them together into lineups? What's your kind of just like macro approach to this game?
So I think Justin Jefferson's like the alpha from this game, and he can excel on the week without this game going nuts. Like this game could go under its total. It could be some other game you needed to have. but Justin Jefferson can still have an outstanding game. And then probably the piece that I like second most is actually Alexander Mattison, with news like Cam Akers is likely not to see work. I think he might even be inactive.
Yep.
I think we're still waiting on the official actives and inactives. But yeah, I think Madison is probably a better running back than he's shown like the first couple games of the season. And them pulling in Cam Akers isn't a great sign, but it's if Akers is not relevant for this week, then it's the Madison show again. And like that's a lot of stuff that like might keep his ownership down a little bit. Particularly if people are trying to get a bunch of other pieces from this game. Then I like Josh Kelly and Mike Williams as well. I really am toying around with the idea of game stacking other games and taking like one or two pieces from this game and hoping those are the one or two pieces that hit. And the pieces I'm doing that most often with are Justin Jefferson, Alexander Mattison, and Josh Kelly.
God, this is disgusting. We're either going to have some of the same lineups or be seeing each other at the bottom or a little bit of both. Because I totally agree. I think it's funny with the running backs because yes, both pass defenses stink, right? But both pass defenses also historically, now the Chargers have been giving up big plays in bunches. And despite the fact that the Vikings, the Vikings decided to not let the Eagles beat them passing over the top, if you recall. From the primetime game most recently against the Eagles. And yet still, they gave up like 1 billion rushing yards to DeAndre Swift, right? And the running backs and Jalen Hurts. And the whole goal was to not let them beat you over the top with big plays to the passing game. And guess what? They still gave up multiple big plays to Devonta Smith, and A.J. Brown had a touchdown call back, and the Vikings defense is a mess. But both of these teams schematically and historically have wanted to just like, let's keep everything in front of us. Right, which is like Justin Jefferson will feast, Keenan Allen will feast. It doesn't mean you don't play those wide receivers, but it does mean that those running backs are a lot more appealing, I think, than the market is giving them. Now, Josh Kelly is certainly not going to be unowned, but I think Alexander Mattison is going to be pretty unowned simply because of 2 bad games. And look, no one here is saying Mattison is Bijan Robinson or Christian McCaffrey or anything like that, but this is a guy like at these prices in the past, and this matchup in this exact same offense would be the super chalk in this exact spot on all sites. We'd be rushing to play him. We would probably be leading in with, oh shoot, what do we do with Alexander Mattison in this game? And he's not going to be popular because he had 2 bad games. I'm not saying he's going, I don't think he's that great at football. He could struggle again. But like you said, Cam Akers is irrelevant today. He may be relevant next week when we're talking, but he's not going to be relevant today. And I think that him and Josh Kelly look like arguably the best 2 plays in this game. I'm not going to really say they're better than Justin Jefferson, but we're talking about, an almost 10K player versus, 5 and 6K players. So I just think that it's really interesting that what we might perceive on a lot of slates as the best play, air quotes, in this game is not being owned as the best play because of, I'm not saying it's recency bias, right? I understand it's in projections, but it is like maybe a little bit of recency bias,
Yeah, I think it's absolutely like recency bias. I mean, like Alexander Mattison was a guy that I was like happy to draft, season long and best ball or whatever. And now he's in a game that's got the highest point total in the week. Like, why would we not go there? And like, who's the backup running back? Ty Chandler?
Ty Chandler, who I think that, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to, while I'm thinking about it, the Cam Akers thing, I think is more of an indictment on Ty Chandler and Myles Gaskin and those guys than it is on it. I'm not saying it's great for Madison. It's not, but I think they realize that, okay, Madison's probably not very good, but these other guys suck even worse than he does. It was free. It was free to bring Cam Akers in. So like, why not try it? I don't think it means Madison's like, they don't care about him anymore.
Yeah, I think it might just mean that Cam Akers were out as welcome with the Rams, and they've got like Kyron Williams there, and they just had enough of Cam Akers. I mean, that's been kind of like a saga going back seasons. That Cam Akers, it's not like the first time that they said like he might be released, and this time he was finally traded. Yeah, it may not be as big of an indictment of Alexander Mattison as we're thinking. It just happened to come after maybe a bad Alexander Mattison game. And again, it's 2 games. Like, I mean, we maybe sit there in like July and August, and if you ask us like, what do you think about week 3 of the NFL? It's like, oh, it's the week where people like get these strong convictions that aren't warranted off of like 2 games.
Great point.
You know, like
Yep.
in week 15, we'll be like, oh, do you remember like week 3? What were we thinking? You know, taking some of the guys we ended up taking. And so yeah, like people probably get like recency bias too much. So I like the idea of playing Madison in this game, especially on rosters that are 8 games back from another game.
Totally agree. You want to talk about some leverage opportunities? If you're willing to bite the bullet in this game, there are definitely some fun leverage opportunities. I don't want to get too far behind on the questions in the chat, so we'll hit some of those and then we'll bounce to. I want to talk about the running back position because very, very interesting. Usually it's like I can come up with a million wide receivers to play, and there's really not any running backs I want to play. It's not totally flipped, but it's almost a little flipped this week, which I find to be a very interesting. I'll share what Dean is mentioning here. Pick 6 Wednesday, one of the best shows on RotoGrinders. Shout out to, of course, Dean and Reeves and Daigle. They have a Pick 6 listener league that you can get a free month of RG Premium if you win. So check that out. This is definitely true. Shout out to Rob. Didn't know that Erik was capable, but certainly not this early. Usually not capable. And shout out to Mabs. Extra butter, please, on your popcorn. Yes. Haven't had movie theater. Probably not going to have movie theater popcorn for another long while, but extra butter every time we do get it. Dave asks, good segue into the running back position. What are you doing with Jerome Ford today? Obviously, no Nick Chubb. Good news, by the way, on the Nick Chubb injury. He didn't it looked like, they were going to have to, looked like for sure a career ender probably, but it wasn't quite as serious. That dude must be a tank. Like, I don't know how his leg didn't snap in half on that play, but he didn't even totally blow out his knee. So 6 to 8 months, I think I saw for Nick Chubb. So good for him. But how are you feeling about Jerome Ford without Nick Chubb?
So I'm not that high on Jerome Ford, which is tough to say because he just won me $1 million. But them bringing in Kareem Hunt is a little bit of a red flag. I'm higher on Ford if Hunt is inactive, but I think he's going to be active, and I think he's going to be projected to be in the backup running back role. But it's tough because Hunt has been there before. Like, he's been in the system. He was there last year, if I recall. So that's a little bit of a concern that maybe Kareem Hunt is coming in, and if Kareem Hunt had never left the organization and Nick Chubb went down, we'd be load up on Kareem Hunt, right? Just Jerome Ford had an excellent game, but Kareem Hunt wasn't there last game. So that's a little bit of a concern. I'd be higher on Jerome Ford if we get word that Kareem Hunt is inactive, but I'm expecting Hunt is going to be active, and that adds a lot of uncertainty on a week when there is a lot else to like at the running back position.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the biggest themes. I'll also add in that week 3, this is, I hope this doesn't happen again next week, because it probably means there was an injury or something. 3rd week, we're 3 weeks into the season. This is the 3rd week. We get a chalk running back, basically because of an injury, against the Tennessee Titans at a cheap price, right? And I fully understand the whole matchups don't matter, right? It's like the wide receiver cornerback thing. Aren't you worried about Jair Alexander? And then Justin Jefferson, scores 40 fantasy points. It's yes and no to the Tennessee Titans thing. Why I bring it up, why a lot of people bring it up, is it is factual that they are a good run defense. That does not mean that the running back against them is not going to score any fantasy points. It does mean he projects to be less efficient running the football than he would in an otherwise neutral matchup. So if that player is going to be very popular, and we have these reasons to believe that it's going to be tougher than average for him to get here, and as you said, we have alternatives, which we'll get to in a second, quite a few actually, alternatives to save money at other positions. That's when I just like to look, could Jerome Ford score 2 touchdowns, break a long run like he did last week? Yeah, anything could happen in football, but the field is banking on that. And they're banking on the fact that the Tennessee defense doesn't matter. If the field were saying, I can't play this guy. Do you see the Tennessee run defense? You can't play anybody against them. If they were doing that and he was 5%, we would be sitting here and I'd be going, you got to play Jerome Ford today. But it's the opposite. And so it's just one of those things where the matchup is bad. You have Kareem Hunt there, which creates uncertainty. You have the Browns, frankly, are bad. like I don't. We can also point out the elephant in the room that the Browns offense has been absolutely putrid through 2 games and all of last year with Deshaun Watson. We're making excuses for him every single week. I don't know what it's going to be today, but I'm sure there'll be an excuse as to why he sucks again. And there's just a lot of factors at that ownership for Jerome Ford. Anything else on that one?
Just I'll say, actually, like Deshaun Watson's a play that's been growing on me throughout the week. That, like, looking at this is maybe his spot. He's playing at home against a bad pass defense. He's obviously hasn't done well, but it's been like almost less time than you would think. Like, he just started, I guess, week 13 last season, and he's been in a bunch of bad weather games against pretty good defenses. He hasn't looked good on tape. The people that watch tape have told me he doesn't look good. But maybe this could be his spot, and that's a thought as well. So last week, Nick Chubb is their centerpiece of their offense, goes down. It's unexpected, and the team doesn't do that well passing the ball. But maybe with a full week to prepare without Nick Chubb, it's not Jerome Ford, especially against a good rush defense, bad passing defense. Maybe it's Deshaun Watson. And so maybe this is finally the week. I know it seems like we've been waiting forever, but it's really only been since week 13, 14 of last season. And again, 2 bad games to start the season doesn't necessarily mean we don't know how we're going to be thinking about Deshaun Watson come week 15 and 16. And we might look at, why were we not playing more Deshaun Watson against the Titans pass defense at home after Nick Chubb went down?
It's another pretty good example of, now, Watson was very polarizing during the offseason, right? He's very polarizing in general, given his past, but where people were reasonably excited about him for fantasy, at least in terms of his bounce back potential. He's obviously been very, very good for fantasy years ago, but historically the weapons got a little bit upgraded. You brought in Elijah Moore, they drafted Cedric Tillman, et cetera, et cetera. Offensive line is good. And he did have a fine game in week 1 in that monsoon. You're seeing it on your screen. He scored basically 22 fantasy points. He ran for 45 yards and a touchdown. Last week, he ran for 22 yards. So we're talking about through 2 games, you're banking 2 or 3, upwards of ceiling of 10 plus points rushing from this guy, which we know historically. The passing has been horrible. No denying that. But also, like you said, the Steelers I know Brock Purdy and the Niners carved him up, but that's not a defense that you generally, are like, oh yeah, this guy's going to crush them. Generally, actually, the efficiency is going to look like this. And the Bengals, like you said, was in a total monsoon. He looked terrible regardless, but there are reasons to believe that this is the spot. And like you said, if we didn't see him play so bad in those last 2 games, and he also, honestly, he didn't have the name that he is and the player that he is, we would be like, Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper as a stacking partner is 5,700 on DraftKings. Elijah Moore is 4,600 or 4,700 on DraftKings. These guys are free, and they soak up all the targets in a great spot, and we're not playing them because we have to play Jerome Ford and because we're worried about those 2 weeks. He's really actually, he's probably to Ritter. I don't want to keep talking about Ritter too much, but to Ritter, he's probably my second favorite tournament quarterback because he also provides a lot of leverage too.
I think so. And I think Watson and Ritter are actually pretty similar this week, but I do think they're more DraftKings plays than FanDuel because on DraftKings, you really need the salary. And I think you can go there. So J.M. DeWin actually asked me this on the show we do on Friday, just because it's a single entry show. He's like, because I was talking up Desmond Ritter, and he's like, would you play Ritter in single entry? And I think I would on DraftKings. On FanDuel, probably not. No, I don't. But on FanDuel, I think both of these guys still are in 150. If you're doing 150 lineups, even if you're doing 20 lineups, I think I'd have 1 or 2 of each of Watson and Ritter.
I totally agree. Yeah, FanDuel is definitely different. Want to make sure we bring that up. Thank you for calling that out. The pricing is so funny on quarterbacks between the 2 sites. It's probably the one where it's the biggest difference in how you handle it, because the elites are much easier to fit on FanDuel, and the pricing gap, especially relative to the salary cap, is different. And we're talking about Desmond Ritter because he's $5,000 on DraftKings, and because in order to get some of these superstars, you have to make concessions somewhere. And we both just said we don't love Jerome Ford. It's like you start running out of guys to save pricing, or save salary, but. Those 2 quarterbacks definitely jump out. What do you think about, Jared asks, on the Houston Jacksonville game. And going back, CJ Stroud had a nice game last week. Shout out to us. We called that one out as a really, really intriguing tournament stack. Tank Dell came through. Nico Collins came through. Obviously, it was a little bit game script proof, but that might be the game script for Houston a lot of times this week. They did get Laramie Tunsil back for their left tackle, their probably best offensive lineman. And Jacksonville, pretty good bounce back spot for them, really across the board against Houston after a down game against the Chiefs, which, by the way, did you see? It wasn't going to go well for anybody in that game the way it started in the first half, but guess it was like 1 billion degrees and 1 billion% humidity. And like everybody in the Chiefs Jags game last week was like dropping like flies in the second half. ETN was cramping and Travis Kelce could barely run by the end of it. And like all these guys were just like Ridley was struggling. Everybody was struggling with cramps and stuff. That would have been really nice for me to know. Where's like our resident Florida folks? You're supposed to tell us when it's like 150 on the field so we don't play these guys. But anyway, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I think it's a game that has some potential. I probably like the Jacksonville side more than like a CJ Stroud stack. Jacksonville's implied point total is 25.5. That's actually just 1 point lower than the Chargers that everybody's like tripping over themselves to play. So I like Jacksonville playing at home. Houston's a little bit of a tougher sell for me, but because I don't know you need to do that. Like it's a lot of risk. I'll have some CJ Stroud in like 150 lineup set. Maybe even in like a 20 lineup set, but I'd be surprised if I had like more than 5% of him. I like the Trevor Lawrence side a little bit better with Zay Jones being out. Like it makes like Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, and Ingram a little bit more appealing. Mm-hmm. And you can run it back with some cheap, like 1 or 2 cheap Houston pieces. Like Tank Dell is still underpriced, and I can even go to like Robert Woods. Or even Dalton Schultz. So I like the idea of maybe a Trevor Lawrence stack with some Houston running backs more than vice versa, like a Houston stack with like 1 Jacksonville piece.
Yep, I totally agree. I think all the and as you see, there's ownership here. There's good projections here. ETN, I like a lot. Another bounce back. I mean, it's a good spot for all of these guys. And like you said, Zay Jones should theoretically consolidate the targets between all of their core pieces. So yes, I like them. It won't be the I'm playing 3 to 7 lineups today. It won't be the foundation of anything, but there'll be Jags pieces in here, and then if it works, a Texan on the other side. Tank Dell is my favorite now that Nico's gotten priced up a little bit, but I don't think Nico's totally crazy either, and I don't think you're crazy like Squirrel said. Small percentage of that game, like stacking up that game, I think is totally fine. It is reasonably priced. This shout out Daryl. I mean, I love a good hot take, but I would be impressed. The Squirrel may be chasing his Panther stacks with really putting your $1 million winning luck to the test here. But I don't think I can get behind Andy Dalton. I don't think it's unreasonable to play some players in that game because both defenses don't look awesome. But I think I'm not sure that on a huge slate, right? You won with the Panthers on a 2-game super duper gross, absolutely gross slate. It was an awesome way to approach tournaments. A little bit different here today.
Yeah. I never thought I'd have to emphasize so much, but I'm saying it on every show I do this week that like do not play 2 backup running backs, or even probably 1 backup running back on your main slate lineup. That was a 2-game Monday night thing, kind of a showdown hybrid almost kind of slate. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not looking at any backup running backs this week on a full slate.
Shout out Brit letting us know Jacksonville is 104 on the field today. So
boots on the ground. That's good.
Boots on the ground. When I play Travis Etienne again and he's cramping in the third quarter, I have no one to blame but myself because now I know it. Let's talk about a couple of, again, if you have questions, please bring them to the chat. I really enjoy talking through the slate, using you guys' questions as a driving force. But let's talk a little bit about some of these running backs because it is kind of crazy. I guess we should stop being surprised with running backs being injured, but it is kind of crazy that we are in only week 3 and the amount of different injuries that we've had to the running back position. So if we run this down really quickly, we just talked about Jerome Ford, lost Nick Chubb. The Lions lost David Montgomery. The Ravens lost J.K. Dobbins, and then now also lost Justice Hill. I'm missing a couple. The Saints obviously do not have Alvin Kamara for another week, and they lost Jamal Williams. Kendre Miller is back, but they lost Jamal Williams. The Dolphins haven't really lost anybody, but you have, Jeff Wilson not there. Raheem Mostert has been kind of the guy in that backfield. And then there was one more that I am forgetting, and I can't remember. Oh, no, he's fine. I was going to say Isaiah Pacheco, but he's supposed to play today. But that's a lot. That's a lot of freaking injuries at the running back position. Go ahead.
Actually, I think you might have skipped over Aaron Jones is inactive.
Aaron Jones, and I skipped over Austin Eckler, the freaking guy at the top of the list, Josh Kelly. So it's half the backfields have lost their starting running back, give or take in this. It's absolutely insane. So is there anything like that is driving your decision specifically? Obviously ownership and roster construction, I get all of that, but is there anything that's like, jumping out to you amongst these guys that's like, no, this guy really looks better maybe than people think with the starter out in front of them?
There's just a lot of good cheap running backs. I'm probably pretty under the field on Tony Pollard just because there's an opportunity cost. Look at the number of 56, 57, 5,400 running backs. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy I'm really high on. There's just a ton of affordably priced running backs. I like Ramondre Stevenson as well, going up to 6,700 on DraftKings. Pair him with the Patriots defense. We're getting Zach Wilson. We'll maybe talk defense later, but Zach Wilson in the rain, they're great. There's just a ton of running backs that I like that are on the cheaper end of the salary spectrum. So it's making it difficult to pay up at running back, especially running with wide receivers like Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill that you want to spend up for.
Sorted here by point per dollar, and this is on DraftKings. So I apologize to the FanDuel folks. Maybe I'll bounce over there in a little bit. We're just using it as a driving point for the conversation. Don't want to leave our FanDuel folks out to dry. But obviously, you see Josh Kelly projecting as the best point per dollar running back, followed up by Jerome Ford. But it is interesting, a couple of these guys that we've somewhat touched on, some we haven't. We'll get to the Aaron Jones thing, but Miles Sanders projecting as the third best point per dollar running back on the slate, which is definitely interesting. I do think it's kind of reasonable, and I actually would be a little bit surprised, depending upon the contest that you're in, if he got to 12%, given the ownership on Kelly, Ford, Pollard, and others. But I think that when the folks were bringing up Andy Dalton and Panthers stacks, I think I would probably rather lean into the running game there. And I don't love Miles Sanders at all, but the Panthers don't have a lot of alternatives to try and go win this game other than to put it in the belly of Miles Sanders. I agree with you on Tony Pollard. I mean, what is there not to love about Tony Pollard this week? The usage last week was absolutely insane. The matchup looks fine. Dual threat type of guy, can catch a bunch of balls. But like you said, what are you willing to sacrifice that? And are you willing to play some 4K, 3K wide receiver with Tony Pollard as opposed to Justin Jefferson or Tyreek Hill or Keenan Allen with, Josh Kelly or Jerome Ford or Miles Sanders or whatever? We talked about Alexander Madison. You mentioned Aaron Jones with AJ Dillon. Is that a guy who is generating some more interest for you? Kind of the matchup is not awesome for him either, but in terms of flop lag, just like a Josh Kelly, people were playing him in cash last week, AJ Dillon, and now no one is air quotes wrong. Obviously, you see ownership here, but he's not going to be crazy popular, despite the fact that Aaron Jones is out again. What do you think about AJ Dillon?
Yeah, I'll probably end up playing more AJ Dillon than I do Tony Pollard. I have a lot of interest there. The price is just it's a really good price. I think ownership's not going to go there as much as it should because we have this huge 2-game sample size where it hasn't looked good. If you had told us 4 weeks ago, Aaron Jones is out week 3, what do you think? You'd be like, oh man, everybody must be loading up on AJ Dillon. He must be the chalk. I don't think people are necessarily going to go there, particularly the news coming out at 11:30 and him looking so bad. I got some interest in AJ Dillon. You mentioned Miles Sanders. I think he's probably the running back that I'm second most interested in on DraftKings that doesn't have injury news. So probably second after Alexander Madison and ahead of Travis Etienne, just in terms of the running backs who don't have any kind of role increases because of injuries.
That makes total sense. I am going to run down as the inactives have started to roll in. If you have any questions on those, or you have a news that we don't hit in terms of the inactives, please feel free to pop them in the chat. Tyler asks about Christian Watson. Do we have any Christian Watson news? Yes, we do. He is confirmed inactive again for this week. And I think you can go back to the well with Reed. I think you can go back to the well with a bunch of these Packers. I think people are bored of them, even though Jaden Reed scored 2 touchdowns. His target share was insanely massive last week, and just kind of nuances of the slate. He's not going to be unowned. Of course, you're not sneaking Jaden Reed by anybody, but I don't think he's going to be, again, so popular that it's a huge deal, particularly depending upon the lineup that you're playing him in. As Squirrel said, Aaron Jones is inactive. For anyone that cares, this is not necessarily relevant to this week. Austin Eckler is hopeful to play next week. So obviously still out this week, leaving Josh Kelly there. Report from Tom Pelissero this morning: Jahmyr Gibbs is expected to get the majority of the work in week 3, whatever that means. So just something to keep in mind again, at the running back position, because David Montgomery is out. Aaron Jones out. Cam Akers officially inactive. So if you were worried about Cam Akers stealing work from Alexander Madison, you're going to have to wait a week for that to happen. Amon-Ra St. Brown is active, which I think is, not like, I don't know if I'll play him, but if I am stacking the Falcons as a pivot off of a Keenan Allen or something like that, I don't think he's totally crazy. I don't actually love the Lions side, because I think how the Falcons win is makes the game really, really gross, like we saw last week with the Packers ran like 46 plays or something like that. But it doesn't always go like that, right? Sometimes maybe the Lions get out ahead, which would be good for actually maybe good for a Gibbs or something, even though we're expecting him to catch passes. Savon Ahmed is out for the Dolphins today, so that should lead Devon Achane as the backup to Raheem Mostert, which probably means you're just going to see a lot of Raheem Mostert. And Cordero Patterson, I know doesn't seem like a big deal, but has been rumored to be coming back, and we didn't really know what was going to be his role. Was he going to steal from London and Pitts and Matt Collins, or was he going to steal from Bijan, or was he going to play at all? But he's inactive again, so we don't have to worry about that with our Falcons. If you guys see anything or have any questions on actives, inactives, please pop them in the chat. I want to bring up one more in the same game, one more running back in the same game as your guy, AJ Dillon, that you mentioned here, and as Jaden Reed is Kendre Miller. So Jamal Williams is out, and Alvin Kamara is still suspended for one more game. Tony Jones Jr. took over last week while Kendre was inactive, and Jamal Williams got hurt during the game. They also used a little bit more Taysom Hill, which is maybe something we'll talk about when we get to the tight ends. He had 9 carries last week. How are you kind of thinking about this backfield? I have a reasonably strong take for tournaments on this backfield, but how are you viewing this backfield? Are you touching it? Are you... is it the Kendre show? Is it split between Tony Jones? Are you more leaning into Taysom? What do you think about the Saints backfield?
So I'm more just staying away from the backfield. I'm not playing a ton of like Tony Jones or Kendre Miller. It's tempting. I think he's like 4,300 on DraftKings. It's like, wow, we can get like that 4,300 running back, but like there's so many guys in the 5,000, mid 5,000 range and up. And I don't think you necessarily need the savings to go down to somebody that might be splitting backfield carries with Tony Jones. It's not the best like environment either. That going into Green Bay in a game with a 42-point total and Green Bay's favored. The guy that I like that I think maybe benefits from the running back situations, Taysom Hill. Don't mind taking a flyer on Taysom at the tight end position. To get 3,300 on DraftKings. Like he might be getting some passing yards too. And they love putting him in the kind of goal line or red zone packages. So I'm probably overweight or making a point to be overweight Taysom Hill and not really going to the Saints running backs as much. I think like if you're again like multi-entry 150 lineups, 20 lineups, like play one Kendre Miller or play a handful of Kendre Miller in 150 set, but it's not somebody I'm looking to be like super over the field on, where I think he's like a super sneaky play at 4,300.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. I am going to probably play a little bit more Kendre Miller. It's a lot of different things, but I think Tony Jones Jr. is not, they don't even want Tony Jones Jr. on the team. And they drafted Kendre Miller in the 3rd round. They gave him a bunch of work in the preseason. Certainly concerns with Taysom Hill stealing goal line work, but that's life. That existed in week 1 with Jamal Williams, and we didn't really worry about that. I think the matchup is very good. Hand in the dirt with the Packers run defense on Kendre. And he's like a tier below those other, right? I get $1,400 savings off of AJ Dillon to get him. I think he's higher variance. Like he could touch the ball 6 times today for all I know, but I think he flashed as a receiver in the preseason. I think he's super duper explosive. He's actually a pretty big guy. He can definitely handle a full workload given his archetype, whatever you want to call it. So I'm pretty interested in him in tournaments because he's the one one of the guys, not the one guy. There's every running back is out, so he's not the only guy with the injury in front of him that's not catching a ton of ownership. But he's like, you don't see him right on your screen here. I guess I should sort by Pone, and then we would get there. But I keep scrolling down to 4%, right? And so I toss him into that bucket of a bunch of the tournament running backs that I really, really like. That I'm not saying there's much certainty around him, and that's why he's not getting that. But I love those guys, right? It's like I think about it like not the same thing because it's definitely not this, but like Puka Nacua in week 1. Where it was like, there's no Cooper Kupp. Somebody's got to catch passes. And everybody was just like, I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know who this Puka guy is, so I can't play him or whatever. It's like, somebody's got to touch the ball in the Saints backfield. Like Taysom's not going to play every snap. You know what I mean? So it's like, somebody's got to do it. And I like to bet on the young, talented rookie types. And, if he sucks, he sucks. It is what it is. I do just want a couple of entertaining comments. Thoughts on Ken Walker? From Football Jesus's Fantasy Show. I'll have to check that. Just check your show out next week. But thoughts on Ken Walker? I think he's a really good play. Fits into the ETN, Madison, those groups like you mentioned. That like nothing has changed for Ken Walker, but the Panthers defense is a little banged up. He's gotten a lot more work, I think, than maybe people expected. The pass game usage is still not awesome, and the Seattle Seahawks offensive line is still not very good. But, if we set all those things aside, the price is nice. He projects fine. He's a good player. Are you playing any Ken Walker today?
Playing some Kenneth Walker. He hasn't been getting like a ton of work, right? Like, I mean, he's a starting running back. He's getting the majority of the work out of the backfield, but he's still not getting like a ton of work. This isn't a super high point total. So there's other places I kind of like to go, but I think I'll be playing him again in my 150 lineup set. It's just like there's so many good running backs that are getting a little bit of a boost after pricing came out that like Walker's not someplace I'm going to a ton.
Yep, that's exactly how I feel. I think he's totally fine. Like if you make a tournament team and you have 6,200 left for Ken Walker, or like you said, you go out to make sure you get X percentage of Ken Walker into your teams, I think totally fine. I also think, like you said, this game environment's really gross. Carolina is not interested in coming out and shooting out with teams. Like, why does Miles Sanders project well, even though he stinks and their offense stinks? It's because they want to ground and pound you, right? Especially with Andy Dalton back there. I think the Seahawks are totally fine doing that. And I think the Panthers, if they have a strength, it's their pass defense. On defense, their strength would be their pass defense. And so, Seahawks want to run, but like lots of running on both sides. Like that's probably the concern for the Falcons, right? That is the concern that everybody tells you about the Falcons is, they're going to run too much. You can't play those guys. They're going to run too much. It's like, I know running is good for Ken Walker, but if both sides are running and you don't get 100 yards and you don't get a touchdown, guess what? You're in a lot of trouble because he doesn't catch passes. Also, just to point out there, he has a lot of upside. We talked about him as a pretty strong, reasonably strong tournament play. He is still just like, it's like a 60-40 split. He's the 60 in that backfield, but you have the combination of Zach Charbonnet and DJ Dallas stealing the other 40%. And they're also stealing the passing game portion that is the 40%, which is like not great, right? For fantasy, a lot of these other guys that we're talking about here are not losing that 40% of the high value touches. They might be losing, whatever, they get tired, right? When Alexander Madison gets tired, the other guy comes in, he's not losing the high value touches. So to that point, I know Colin was worried about if we're not talking about Walker, we're trying to keep our plays close to our vest. We don't want the people winning the money, even though Squirrel literally wrote up every player that he talked about in $1 million winning lineup, and we show up here every week talking about guys scrubs like Kyle Pitts and stuff. I promise you, we're not withholding any crazy tournament information. Yes, Aaron Jones officially out, Watson officially out. There was a question that I totally missed. Let's talk about this game. So I feel like it's one of the few Chiefs games, in particular against a horrible defense, that is not really getting much hype. What are you doing? Of course, Bandero's question, Fields, Komet. What do you think about that? But what do you think about the Chiefs Bears game for tournaments?
So I think people probably aren't going to this game as much as they should, but I don't know that I'm in love with the Bears side of it. But like Justin Fields is you can play Justin Fields and Cole Kmet, but you're kind of hoping Justin Fields is maybe running for 2 touchdowns, one of them being a long run, and Cole Kmet maybe catches his only passing touchdown. And in this matchup in particular, it's a little bit off. If I'm playing Justin Fields, maybe I wouldn't be playing Travis Kelce. And I'm hoping that Fields, runs in a couple touchdowns. And then suddenly Kansas City is maybe passing the ball more than they expect. I think something that people aren't noticing as much as I would have thought is there's one team with a 30-point implied point total on the slate, and it's not in the Chargers-Vikings game. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. I think there's nothing that's more highly correlated with fantasy point production than the team's implied point total. We're expecting Kansas City to score 4.5 touchdowns. Where are those touchdowns going to come from? They might come from the defense. They may come from Isaiah Pacheco. But the offense tends to be centered around Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. If past performance is telling us anything, the issue is those guys are obviously very expensive, but you can still start a lineup with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and just see what else you get. And I think that's maybe a more intriguing way to play this game rather than going all the way down to Justin Fields and Cole Kmet. But Justin Fields is a good big large field tournament play, because if he scores 2-3 rushing touchdowns, there's a good chance he's on the winning lineup.
I agree. I think generally speaking, this game feels way under-owned to me, but I also feel that about the Chiefs every single. You could probably sign up besides Travis Kelce. Even Mahomes never gets crazy popular because he doesn't run, and we have Allen and Hurts and Lamar and all those guys at quarterback, and then of course cheap options, and you don't know who to play at wide receiver, right? And Kadarius Toney was questionable. He is supposed to play today, so it is certainly a mess. But that doesn't mean these guys aren't going to score, right? Just because you don't know who it is, kind of like the Rams thing or the Saints backfield or whatever. Just because you don't know who it's going to be doesn't mean one of them isn't going to do it. And so, in my main team, am I going to have any of these Chiefs wide receivers? No. Am I going to have anybody in this game? I don't know. But I do feel confident in exactly what John said, that if there's one team, is going to score 35 points today, and you said, gun to your head, you have to pick one, I would pick the Chiefs. And I don't think I would even think twice about it. And yet, the highest owned player in this game is Travis Kelce at 13%. No one else, this is sorted by projected ownership, setting aside the quarterbacks. No one else is higher than 3.5% owned in this game. And one team we expect is going to score 30-something. I think that's pretty interesting. I do probably like the Fields DJ Moore stack a little bit more if I were going to do it, Fields, DJ Moore, Kelce, or Mahomes, receiver, Kelce, DJ Moore. DJ Moore as a bring back, or bringing him along with Justin Fields, I think makes some sense, because it's kind of the same thing that you mentioned in reverse with Fields, where his true ceiling, in tournaments is because he's running. But I think to hit a monster 40-point plus ceiling, he does need to throw, particularly in this matchup. And if he's gonna have success throwing, Cole Kmet is okay, fine, catch some checkdowns. DJ Moore is where it's oh baby, DJ Moore just caught a 60-yard touchdown. That's where that comes from. So I'm pretty interested in this game. It's just trying to figure out how to make the roster construction work, because I'm also pretty interested. I'm also interested in Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill and those guys too. So I don't know yet how to make it work, but this game looks really appealing to me.
Yeah, and we actually had a Chase Claypool sighting last week. 8 targets and a touchdown. So, he's still alive. Maybe he is a guy that you want to make sure you're checking the actives and inactives. But that's a thought to 3,400 on DraftKings. That gives you a way to play Mahomes and Kelsey.
I totally agree. Shout out, Coach Priester. I like the name here. Question from Nicholas for cash games. Admittedly, at the top mentioned, I'm not playing cash games. I don't know if John is. So I don't know, like, in terms of projections, how things look, and who's popping in the optimals. I haven't run any, but at total macro level, Tank Dell seems fine for me in cash. I don't know how you feel about that on DraftKings.
He's my highest projected wide receiver at 3,600 or below. I think that would be a DraftKings play only. I think because of the receptions and the price at 3,600. But I think he is absolutely fine for cash games.
A question here. Someone in the chat answered the question that's going to segue me into this next one that I want to talk about. Spent a lot of time talking about the running backs with injured players and such around them. But there was a question about Mostert, kind of a 2v2 or 3v3 type of a question that had Mostert in it. And Nicholas mentions, I would say Mostert to answer his question. Waddle is out, so that may open up a couple targets. That's a totally reasonable take. But what I will pivot to is I don't think Waddle being out is opening up targets for Raheem Mostert. I think it's making their pass game really appealing, all of them. And I think there's cheap running backs, and then you have like a Tank Dell who feels more certain because we saw it last week. But Jalen Waddle's like a really big piece of the Dolphins offense. I think it puts Tyreek Hill right on par with Justin Jefferson in terms of the spend up options at wide receiver on this slate. I know Jefferson is amazing. There's a stat from, again, shout out to the Pick Six crew. I think it was Rich Rebar said, if you remove Jalen Waddle from the field, right? So kind of like NBA on off. So not just games he missed, but if you remove Jalen Waddle from the field, but you put Tyreek Hill on the field. Tyreek Hill has been targeted on nearly 50% of the routes he has run without Jalen Waddle. Meaning, if Jalen Waddle's not out there, they're trying to get Tyreek Hill the ball. Shocker, I know. But that there are also two wide receivers in particular left on the Dolphins that are in that 30. One is 3,600 and one is 3,400 on DraftKings. These are both pretty much just DraftKings plays to me. But I'm pretty interested in all three of the Miami wide receivers, the other two being Braxton Berrios and River Craycraft. Shout out River Craycraft, one of the best names in all of the NFL. And I actually really like River Craycraft. I hammered his props today. I believe his receiving yardage was 24.5, and originally his catch receptions prop was 1.5. DraftKings removed it from the board. FanDuel boosted it up, so the number is not nearly as good now. But I actually think Craycraft is the guy who's like really sneaky for tournaments as a punt. Like if you want to spend up a smidge at running back, or you want Travis Kelce or something, I think Craycraft is actually the guy that benefits the most from Jalen Waddle's absence, because he can play outside a little bit more, where Berrios is a slot receiver. But what do you think about the Dolphins today in general?
Yeah, my lineups are littered with Dolphins. I like Mostert. Obviously, I like Tyreek Hill. I'm going to have probably more Justin Jefferson than Tyreek Hill, just because of that game environment. But Miami, again, implied point total is right up there, I think, ahead of the Chargers, and actually just a little bit behind the Vikings. Again, that's the game that everybody's like running out to load up their rosters with the players from that game. I think like Berrios and Craycraft actually both had like 5 targets, 3 receptions in week 1, again, with Jalen Waddle there. I think Craycraft got the touchdown. I agree. He's probably the more direct replacement for Waddle. So probably like a smidge more interested in Craycraft, but it's probably like unknowable, right? Like who's going to be getting between Berrios and Craycraft. I slightly lean towards Craycraft, but I mean, really the guy you want there is Tyreek Hill, and then the tight end Smythe. I got some interest there because he's super cheap.
Yep, I think it's hard to imagine somebody from the Dolphins, not kind of like we talked about with the Chargers Vikings game. It's like somebody's going to do something in that, even if the game disappoints, like you mentioned, like Justin Jefferson's probably still going to have a good game, or Keenan Allen or Josh Kelly or Alexander Matt. Like somebody's probably going to have a good game there. It's really hard for all of them to fail. That's how I feel about the Dolphins. Like I'm not saying Tyreek Hill is going to score 40 like you might need him to at 9K. I'm not saying Raheem Mostert's going to score 2 touchdowns like last week, but like they're gonna score point. Like they score points against everyone, and the Broncos defense has been putrid. Like Craycraft or Barrios or Smythe or somebody's got to do something to me on this team. Will they win you a tournament? I don't know, but I love leaning into like, I don't know, a Dolphin's got to do something. That feels like when I need a savings or I want to spend up or whatever. I need a running back, right? You need a running back around 6K. It's like, I know we were talking about Ken Walker. Like I like Mostert better than Ken Walker in terms of like that 6K range. So the Dolphins just look really, really good to me. Again, similar to the Vikings and Chargers game. Any off the kind of rate, totally off the radar, like games you're targeting, not necessarily that you're like totally stacking up, but like, could be a game stack, could be some certain teams or games that you're maybe a little more interested in than the field.
I think the thing that fits that mold for me more than anything else is what we led the show off with, Desmond Ridder and the Falcons Lions. I think there's so many good young offensive pieces in that game. And we did, everybody wants to shy away from the Falcons because they just run the ball. Well, rushing yards count too. And especially if they come from a quarterback, like that's really important. Like Drake London is still there. Like Drake London's numbers with Desmond Ridder as a starting quarterback are much better than I would have thought. Like when I started digging into that game, and the Lions last season gave up more rushing yards than any other team to quarterbacks by about 10 rushing yards. I think they were at 40 or more. Every other team was at 30 or less. So that's a thought. Like my hot take on the expert survey was that Desmond Ridder leads the Falcons in rushing yards. I mean, that's a very small chance that actually hits, but it's directionally right. It's where I'm thinking in terms of I think Desmond Ridder is a much better play at 5,000 on DraftKings than people are realizing. I mean, he had 10 rushes last week, 39 yards. If one of those breaks, right, because the Lions can't defend rushing quarterbacks, like if one of those breaks for like a 40-yard touchdown, he's suddenly finding himself as a tournament winner. And you can pair him with Drake London at only 5,000. Like London's numbers with Desmond Ridder as the starting quarterback. I think if you throw out week one, it's like he's averaging 80 yards receiving and like 6 catches per game. So yeah, if London's getting a touchdown and if Ridder's getting some rushing yards, like and then you can throw in Kyle Pitts as well, and then you're also able to run that back with like Amon-Ra St. Brown or Josh Reynolds or Sam Laporta or Jahmyr Gibbs. That's a game environment that I've got a lot of interest in, where I think it could go over the total, and if it does, then that might be the game you need to have rather than Minnesota and the Chargers.
I'm gonna see if we can lose as much of your $1 million on this game as possible, because I could not possibly agree more with this. The Lions have been the Coors Field. You mentioned the Coors Field with the Vikings Chargers, but the Lions have been the Coors Field, especially in Detroit, in the dome on the turf for years. And yes, they got better, right? And they got the kneecap biter of a head coach who drinks more coffee than anyone on the planet. And like, it's all fun and everything. But like, they are brutally banged up on defense. We're talking about all these running backs and stuff being hurt. A, their running back is hurt. But B, they lost both their safeties. They lost one of their better pass rushers. Like, they're in trouble. Their corners were not very good already. The secondary is bad. Like you just mentioned, even when they had been a little bit better and healthier, they were giving up tons of rushing yards to quarterbacks. They're giving up tons of points. And the Falcons score points, man. Like, there's a disconnect, I think, from the joy we get as fantasy bros watching the Falcons, which is none, right? We don't get joy watching them. And how many points and like stats they actually put up. It may not be right when Tyler Algier runs for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns and London doesn't get a target, whatever. We feel disgusted, but they still scored like 4 touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like they're scoring points. They're going to score points today. I think they're going to outright win. I bet them plus 3.5 today and on the money line. But I just think that there's a little bit of a disconnect here. And then, as you said, the pricing is it's insanely cheap. Other than Bijan, it's crazy cheap. I even we talked about like the Dolphins punt wide receivers. I like Mac Hollins as just a total punt milli maker wide receiver. We've seen him, granted in Vegas, we've seen him break slates and win people millions of dollars in Vegas last year. If you recall, he had a 40 fantasy point game because he's a big down the field threat guy. He actually leads the Falcons in target share this year. Take that to your trivia bank for the next, if you have a trivia night for the next hour, because it won't exist after the next hour. But who leads the Falcons in targets, air yards, target share, air yard share, tied for the most in end zone targets, all that kind of stuff? Not London, not Pitts, not Bijan, Matt Collins. It's like, that's gross. I don't expect it to continue, but like, I'm willing to toss it into a couple of, large field GPP lineups to see. I don't know. Maybe he does get 6 or 7 targets and catches a bomb. I just think all these guys are really appealing. Lions as well. We removed David Montgomery. We have like no real receiving threats. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, they don't have anybody else. Sam Laporta, it's only going to go to 4 dudes. They're not amazing 4 dudes, but they're not bad either. And so this game just looks really appealing to me from like a million different viewpoints. And then you compound the fact with like one guy's over 10%. One, like, that seems crazy to me. So this is my tournament take team. I'll also add one final thing and we'll get away from this one. I like Pitts the most out of the stacking partners. And it's, other than the do factor, which is, fun to joke about, what you can do roster construction wise. We know tight end is a wasteland, right? And we know we want to spend up on all these guys. Like, I want Justin Jefferson. I want Tyreek Hill. I want Keenan Allen. I want et cetera, et cetera. It's like, well, I can get the Falcons stack, and then I can stack the Chargers game next to it. I can stack whatever other game. I can get all these superstars. You want Tony Pollard? You want those guys? Like, you can get them, and you don't use any of your wide receiver or running back or flex positions by using Kyle Pitts with Ritter. And like, Pitts is a slight dog to London and those guys to score the most out of the skill guys. But like, I don't know. He's still Kyle Pitts. He can catch a long touchdown, So I just love this game. I'll be holding my L here in 3 hours when it's all Bijan and Algier and it sucks. But I think it's just way too appealing for tournaments to pass up.
Yeah, I think like Ritter and Drake London is just 10,000 for a quarterback wide receiver pairing. And if London's catching a touchdown, like Ritter's probably getting some rushing yards, then like that's this is a game like if you start pairing these guys, like Matt Collins and Desmond Ritter, it's like 8,500 for your quarterback and wide receiver. And like especially if like Matt Collins is justifying that $3,500 price tag, like he's almost certainly bringing Desmond Ritter along with him. And again, like Pitts and Ritter is like less than 9,000 combined. So if you're pairing Desmond Ritter with 2 wide receivers or his tight end, like that's if the wide receiver and tight end are catching touchdowns, like Desmond Ritter at 5,000 is probably giving you a score that potentially wins the tournament.
100%. I promise we'll come back to, there's a bunch of good questions in the chat. Really quickly, I want to hit 2 positions from Kyle Pitts onto the tight end position, which is a disgusting thing to talk about every single week. It's very easy to just say, just play the tight end with your stacks. And I kind of just said that with the Falcons. So I was taking the easy route. But were there any tight ends specifically that kind of have jumped out to you? Of course, if you are just, largely correlating your tight ends, you can say that too, but just how are you viewing the tight end position this week?
I mean, it's Travis Kelce and everybody else. Like Kelce would be the only guy I'm really going out of my way for. I think Taysom Hill is going to be way underowned. He has like one of the broadest range of outcomes on the slate. Like we don't know how the Saints backfield is going to break out, but we do know that Hill had 9 rushes for 75 yards last week. So
threw a pass and had 2 targets. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, so like we know he's going to be in there at only 3,300. Like there's not much, like you're not giving up much salary for a ton of upside. I don't love that game environment, but yeah, I'm probably playing more Taysom Hill than I am like Kendry Miller or Tony Jones, just because like that's my way of kind of playing that backfield in a way that's not necessarily going to hurt me that much. Like we presume Taysom Hill is going to be getting some rushes and some targets. So at 3,300 for tight end, like a lot of your 3,300 and under tight ends, like could possibly whiff, like completely. So, and I don't think Taysom Hill will. And then I think Durham Smythe on DraftKings at only 2,900. And then you mentioned, or the show before was mentioning like Cole Turner at 2,700. I think he's in play, but I think like John Bates being there is a little bit of a concern. But again, he's a flyer you can take a shot on at the tight end position.
Yep, more of I'm excited for the fact that I drafted him on some best ball teams than or you're in a tight end premium fantasy league and you need you absolutely need somebody, go ahead and pick that guy up. But And yeah, I think $2,700 tight end who's going to get some targets and is a pretty good receiver, in a large field tournament, go for it. But even I am not, running to roster Cole Turner today. The one thing I'll say, I don't have any real strong takes on tight end. Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce and frankly, all the expensive guys look a little bit underowned to me. I don't necessarily love, playing TJ Hawkinson and not Justin Jefferson, but we talked about Madison and I think Hawkinson as well in really good spots in the best game of the week, but where everybody's rushing to play Justin Jefferson and Addison. So, I think that those guys look really appealing. I think we need to stop with the Luke Musgrave nonsense. I think projections, I know I'm not trying to do it's 2 games, but I think we were just giving Luke Musgrave a little too much work for the first 2 weeks that he's Luke Musgrave should not be the chalkiest tight end on every slate this whole season. I think we can decide, maybe give some other guys a shot. He's this, and to your point, he's the same price as Taysom. Luke Musgrave also has a wide range of outcomes because he's not that good and the Packers offense is not that good. I kind of just prefer Taysom in tournaments. There was somebody else. Oh yeah, Laporta. We talked about Pitts in that game, but I really, really like Laporta. I think he gets totally lost. The price feels a little bit like, why would I spend $4K on Sam Laporta when I can get Taysom for $3,300 or Smythe for $2,900? But I think he has a little more upside than a lot of these other guys. And if you're playing London or Bijan or Matt Collins in that game instead, I really do like Laporta at tight end. Yeah, shout out Cheyenne. Hit the like button. Donnie asks, we'll hit a couple questions. We will hit some defenses, and then we'll pass it over to the Crunch Time crew. But Amon-Ra, playing any Amon-Ra in your Ritter stacks? I'm
a little bit concerned, but he's got a foot injury. I'm playing
turf toe, I believe. Yeah, turf toe, which is scary.
It's a little concerning. He's obviously my highest projected wide receiver from the game, but I think he's a better play on FanDuel. He's the same price on both FanDuel and DraftKings, so I think he's a little bit better of a FanDuel play, especially because the salary is a little bit looser there. I don't get as much of him on DraftKings, although I still get some, especially in those Desmond Ritter stacks. I'm saving that money with Desmond Ritter and one of his stacking partners, for something, right? So Amon-Ra, St. Brown makes sense in those stacks. So I do think he's underowned, but the foot injury, I think last thing I saw on Twitter was that there's some kind of plate being inserted, or something. So I don't know. But I agree. I think he's probably underowned.
Yeah, it is funny when you look here sorted by total raw fantasy points at the wide receiver position. All these guys are getting owned. Right. Obviously Jefferson, Tyreek 17, right? Keenan 15, even CD 12%, Calvin Ridley 15%. It's there's 2 guys up here projecting for a lot of points as well. And they're completely not, Amon-Ra's 5% and Stephon Diggs is 6%. I do want to touch on that game before we get out of here as well. But I'm trying to get these questions. Thank you, Murtaugh. It's not technically turf toe, but yeah, it was the steel plate being put in there that had me thinking it was turf toe. Cause that's what when you get turf toe, you're trying to protect it from jamming it in, to the turf. On the tight ends, Dalton asked, what about Hayden Hurst? Any up boost to Hayden Hurst with, I don't know if it's a big boost with Dalton in there over Bryce Young. I think they're both fairly similar, but again, good matchup, not a lot of target competition. Anything on Hayden Hurst for you?
Yeah, just that he won me $1 million. He's the lowest scoring guy on my
Are you gonna run that?
lineup.
Are you gonna run that lineup back? I'll just insert all this, see how it does on a main slate.
So his 3,800 is a little bit more expensive than I would like. I'd probably rather go to Gerald Everett just because he's in that high scoring game. I'd probably like David Njoku in that price range as well. And I probably like Dalton Kincaid for a little bit cheaper. But we don't know. This offense might actually look a little bit better with Andy Dalton. Dalton's not terrible. He's a statue, so that's something to think about. I guess maybe with the Seattle defense. But yeah, I like. That's not the best game environment for Carolina. They might look a little bit better than expected, but I'm not falling over to try to get Hayden Hurst.
Yep, I agree. All right, gonna try to see if we can't rapid fire some of these. Hater asks, FanDuel single entry CD and the Patriots or Amon-Ra and Dallas. This is number 2 for me.
Yeah, for me as well, Amon-Ra. I'm not sure how much Dallas is going to pass the ball. That's the big concern with that game. There is that's maybe the game I'm in. The team Dallas is probably the team I'm most afraid of being underweight on, because I'm having trouble like fitting them into the lineups. But again, they are expected to score like 4 touchdowns. I just don't see them going way over 4 touchdowns. So yeah, I agree. The second one there.
Yep. All right. This one feels kind of straightforward for me. I'm playing Travis Etienne over TJ Hawkinson. I'm assuming in the flex in a single entry tournament. Any pushback on that one?
No, I agree.
Inc says he's playing 2 sub $4,000 wide receivers. Stupid, i.e. Tank Dell and River Craycraft. Inc. I hope not, because I got plenty of teams that have that. So if it's, I've done a lot of stupid things over my DFS career, so it's certainly possible it's stupid. But I really love they project these lineups. This isn't one thing where like it's total gal brain. These lineups project well. Like because you're getting like, dude, you can make lineups with Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce by using this kind of a strategy. I'm not saying that's what you need to do, but you can get really good lineups with that.
Don't try to do it on FanDuel, but yeah,
on
DraftKings, absolutely.
Yes, on DraftKings. Hit this one really quick. Steven asks, out of all those cheap wide receivers, do you have ones you're targeting the most, or are you kind of mixing and matching? Obviously, depending upon your stacks, do you have a preference?
My preference is probably Tank Dell. I think he's the more talented of all these guys. And then probably Downs. Like if I'm going to use one of these guys, it's not in a stack. It's probably going to be Tank Dell followed by Downs. And then I think if you're going to use the Miami wide receivers, I'm probably using them in like a Tua stack along with Tyreek Hill.
Makes sense to me. Just a couple of super quick questions before we bring on our good friends from Crunch Time. We did talk about this one. I'm authentic, says a Watson and Amari Cooper stack. We like the Deshaun Watson stacks. I actually think I like Elijah Moore just a smidge more, but I'll be totally honest, that's bias. I just like Elijah Moore, the player, a little bit more. He's just cheaper, but if you don't need it, I think Amari is totally fine. Let's see here. With Odell out, this is a good one. We didn't really talk about the Ravens, and I think they're in a pretty good spot. Tells you about the depth of this actual tournament slate is that we never even touched on the Ravens against the freaking Colts abomination of a secondary. Donnie asked, with Odell out, it's gross, but what about some Aguilar in Lamar stacks? He's cheap, and he did get targets and scored a touchdown last week. Anything on Aguilar for you and or the Ravens? Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews.
Yeah, so Zay Flowers is the guy that I'm going to prioritize there, and it's really a shift from prioritizing Lamar Jackson with Mark Andrews. But Lamar Jackson in Baltimore is actually one of my favorite stacks, especially on FanDuel. It's priced a little bit better. And one of my favorite single entry stacks. I'm using it extensively in single entry, and obviously then my 150 build, my 20 max builds or whatever. Their weather was supposed to be pretty bad, and it looks like it's going to be a little bit better than we thought.
Yep.
I noticed Lamar Jackson's passing yards prop was up 10 yards this morning from last night. And probably some of that is weather related. And so I think they'll be passing the ball. I was really concerned about Lamar Jackson coming into the season, maybe not running the ball as much, and his running backs keep going down. So that's bad for the running backs, but probably good for Lamar Jackson. And Zay Flowers looks like the real deal. So and it's only 2 weeks, so we don't know. But if I'm going to take a roll of the dice on a rookie one of the rookie wide receivers in week 3, I think it's probably Zay Flowers. And I love the idea of pairing him with Lamar. And then, in terms of Aguilar, I think that's a DraftKings Millie Maker play. And it might hit. I think the Ravens are going to be passing the ball a little bit more than might have seemed earlier this week. So, you can go there. But, the Zay Flowers is the guy that I'm really trying to pair Lamar with.
Yep. 2 quick things I want to hit while we bring on our Crunch Time friends. Johnny Rotten and Karan say no Josh Allen stacks today. Didn't mention the Bills and haven't heard Diggs mentioned. Yeah, honestly, just a little bit of an oversight. A lot of good guys to play today. But I like that game. I like the Bills to a totally unowned Josh Allen, Diggs, Gabe Davis. You mentioned Dalton Kincaid looks really good at tight end, and I think Washington has a bunch of decent bringbacks. I love Sam Howell, but I'm not playing Sam Howell today. But I think that game 100% is in play for tournaments. We just talked about 2 good tournaments that we talked for an hour, an hour and 15 minutes. And it took all that to get to 2 good tournament stacks. So I think in terms of the tournament aspect of today, it tells you about how easy it is to make good teams that aren't the stone chalk. Anything else, John, before we bring these fine young gentlemen in on the Bills?
Yeah, just that the Bills are pretty expensive, so they fit in kind of in my head along with Dallas. This team I'm afraid of being underweight on. I just can't really get there outside of my 150 lineup build. I mean, the Bills and Cowboys are both going to put up points. Kind of prefer Baltimore a little bit more for smaller field tournaments.
Guys, what's going on? I'm going to go to Brit first because Brit's been made fun of for having 17,000 bets in over on Scores and Odds.
I get paid to make the bets. They win, so I just keep making more.
I am not complaining, but I'm going to put you on the spot. What's the favorite one today?
2 units, Patriots -2.5. This is without question. They're going to destroy. Weather, Zach Wilson, none of that. That's not good.
I love it. Today. No, I don't think it is. Chief, what's going on? What do you got? What's your favorite thing for today? Could DFS, betting, props, whatever.
Look, why in the world is Robert Woods at 3.5 receptions? That's abysmal. That's like, I've got so much exposure to Robert Woods, 3.5. I mean, he's getting 9 and 10 targets. Like, what are the sports books doing this week? It's crazy.
You sound like me and Squirrel when we first got on. The first thing we mentioned with Desmond Ridder and Kyle Pitts. You sound like you like torture as well. Robert Woods, Desmond Ridder, Kyle Pitts, and the Patriots. We're really bringing the heat here with
Ridder rushing yards 13.5 was my other 2 unit.
I saw everybody was on the Ridder rushing in over at Scores and Odds.
Andre, I just had to shush the baby to sleep. It looks like you're trying to do that with a dog.
Yeah, she just started out of nowhere, and she's been quiet for like the past 5 hours.
It's always when you least expect it. Handle your business. We'll put on Mike. We'll take care of it until you get back. But yeah, Erik and the newly minted millionaire, the millionaire from our show just left. It looks like you're gonna have to stay on, Squirrel.
Yeah, no. Like I said, at the beginning of our show, getting it handed off from one, Bobby Gomes and Millie Baker winner. We got Millie Maker winners on all 3 shows, from 9:30 leading right up to lock. So not a coincidence. Like, we got a great team here. So happy to be the one. I wasn't the first RotoGrinders guy to win $1 million, and I won't be the last. So,
Chief, I demand our $1 million this week. I demand it.
All right, guys, we're gonna get out of here. Have a good show.
Listen,
good luck
it's
today.
Coming because.
I think we got Chief on a lag. Chief's on dial-up internet today.
I got dogs. I got delay. It's my show. Pull up the Scores and Odds screen. Let's go.
All right, guys. Brit, good luck to you. Good luck to you today. All right, guys. See ya.
Thanks, guys. All right. So let's hope the dog is done barking. We'll see if Chief can get caught up on the lag. Steve, let me know if that's all taken care of. But Andre,
am I caught up?
Are you? Yeah. You good? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We're not. All right. It's not working. Not working great. Andre, what's going on, dude?
Not much. I feel like that was going to happen. Like, she has been quiet. I've been down here in my basement grinding for the past 5 hours, and all of a sudden she just started barking out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's how dogs are. They're quiet, and then the doorbell rings, Amazon delivery. Someone comes to the door. It's all bets are off with a quiet dog. I see Chief finagling with the internet. We'll see what happens there. Are you there, Chief? There's too many tabs, Chief. Close the tabs. Come on back. We'll see if we can get that working. But Andre, we'll just stick with me and you for a second here. First, I want to say we got a lot of people watching. Please click the like button. We greatly appreciate that. On the YouTubes, we'll also I do a bajillion bets on Scores and Odds. I could do more if you guys want more. But for right now, there's a bunch in there. If you're a subscriber over there, go check those out. Some lines are still good. Some when I post early in the week aren't all that great. But I'll get about a couple of bets as we go through the show. Get us to 250 likes. That shouldn't be too hard for you guys to get that. Andre, real quick, screen share. I'm going to go to the weather. I want to go over this from a top-down approach here. Earlier in the week, Wednesday, Thursday, we were thinking rain, winds everywhere. Roth has basically given upgrades across the board to most of the weather games. The one he's most concerned about is the Patriots at Jets. Wind, rain. We're not really doing much in that game outside of weather. Maybe a GPP dart throw on a Ramondre Stevenson or something like that. What game to you are you now looking to play more of now that it seems there's still a little bit of weather? There's still some rain. There's still some wind, but it's not 15, 20 mile per hour raining all game like we thought earlier in the week. What's your biggest adjustment you made?
The biggest adjustment I'm trying to make right now is getting Indy and Baltimore in. I'm trying to get more of those type of game stacks. I really wasn't going to be all them as much, but now that the weather's a little bit better and I like the matchup definitely already because I like targeting like Zay Flowers a lot and targeting the backfield with Moss, who got a lot of the carries last week, a decent amount, but Pittman, who I really, really, really love. Those are the guys that really try to make sure I get in there. And like Lamar Jackson's going to probably go well overlooked today, I think, compared to everyone on the field because obviously we want to play Kirk Cousins and Justin Herbert and a couple other guys.
Yeah, Chief, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, right. It looks like your video's looking fresher. It looks like whatever you did, you restarted the router. That's always the trick in the industry. You do that, everything's good. I'm going to pose to you the same question I just asked Andre. Weather, Wednesday, Thursday. We were thinking it was going to be pretty bad across a multitude of games. Now it's really just the Patriots and the Jets. Andre has moved in to try to get more Baltimore, Indy into his lineups. What's a change you've made based on the weather, what we thought was going to happen earlier in the week?
I've been on Zay Flowers all week anyway, so I didn't care what the weather was. Like Zay was going to be in my lineup, and so now and also Justice Hill too. Like in terms of the weather, I'm much heavier on this Baltimore Indy game in general than the other ones. I was kind of questionable with Miami Denver as well, just in case I wasn't sure how it was going to impact that game. But I've got a fair amount of exposure to that game, so I'm completely fading the Patriots game. Like I'm just not going to worry about it. I'm going to mostly fade the Bills too, just because I've got so many other offenses that I want to get concentrated exposure on. But Patriots, the Patriots Jets game, I'm fully fading. I mean, outside of Ramondre, like you need to play Ramondre. Probably need to play a little bit of Zeke too. Like Zeke vultures 2 touchdowns at the goal line. Like he could be okay. So outside of that, I'm not touching those passing games.
Yeah, the Buffalo, Andre, I'm going to pose this to you. I wanted to ask John before he left, but they had to get off to go do other stuff. Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson is you can directly swap to that with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs at like a quarter, a fifth, a sixth of the ownership from a tournament perspective. Are you on any of these Bills, the Bills passing game? I just thought from a game theory, it seems like Chiefs not on it. Are you on it? It didn't seem like they were on it either. I mean, there's not a 15% chance that Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs score less points than Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson today.
I'm not on it today. Granted, that game could go back and forth and be a high-scoring game, just like we saw with them. Like they did last week against Denver. But I just don't think that's the right play this week. Honestly, there's a couple other games I'd rather get to, and a couple of the matchups I like a little bit more, as opposed to getting to Josh Allen this week. Personally.
All right. Well, let's talk quarterbacks, Chief. I'm going to throw it to you. If neither one of you are on Josh Allen, of course, not for cash games. I don't think he's really in the conversation today. What are we looking at? There's a lot to go. You've got Patrick Mahomes. He's going to count to 10 again against the Bears, who took Mitchell Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes all-time, basically worst quarterback draft move you could have possibly ever made for a franchise. So he's got a little bit of revenge. The problem with him, who do you actually pair
Patrick
with?
Mahomes is very glad he didn't go to the Bears. I can tell you that.
Well, I mean, I would imagine he would still be great. I don't think it would have turned out as good as it did if he went to the Bears.
I don't know if he would have been great, but
what else are we What else are we looking at here, Chief?
So for me, and I talked about this on a little bit on the Blitz yesterday as well. I'm kind of on these other quarterbacks that no one wants to play on the other side of what I consider to be games where guys are going to be behind. So I believe Jacksonville's going to get off today. So I'm playing a fair amount of CJ Stroud. I believe the Chiefs are going to get off today. I'm playing a fair amount of Justin Fields. I think the Dolphins are going to get off today. I'm playing a fair amount of Russell Wilson. That's kind of where I've centered around. I've got more exposure to those three quarterbacks than anyone. And then, of course, I have Lawrence, I have Tua, have Lamar Jackson, because I think they're going to get off. I don't have any Gardner Minshew, which is probably a mistake because they should be behind as well. But I'm not as interested in Gardner. And then I will have a sprinkle, let's call it Desmond Ridder in this Detroit game. I am fully fading the quarterbacks in the Chargers-Minnesota game in tournaments today, and I'm going to live with those results. If they both score 40 points, I throw up my hands. I say, hey, I'll see you next week.
What about the skill players? Real quick, if you're off of those, Jefferson, Keenan Allen, you're on those guys, just not the quarterbacks?
I'll still have some, but I'm not playing the quarterbacks this week. So I'm not really going to be fully stacking that game. I might have some, I think I have a lineup or a couple of lineups I built that have like Kelly, Jefferson, Kelly, Addison, stuff like that. But I'm not fully exposing myself to this game because I just think the field is going to go overboard. And that's just a stand I'm taking this week for tournaments. And once again, I'm prepared to live with the results if it's 35-35 at halftime. No problem. I'll see you next week. But I think some of these other games are really going overlooked. Not the Houston-Jacksonville game, because people are kind of on that one a lot more than I anticipated. But some of these other ones, they're just kind of ignoring.
Yeah, I've got 5 tournament teams. I'm mostly a cash game player, but I do some tournaments for NFL. I like the Stroud and Ridder as, deep. I'm playing large field tournaments. 2 of my 5, those are my quarterbacks, because not only do I think they both have a little bit of upside today, but they allow you to get the guys you actually want to play on your tournament teams, right? You can get the Jefferson, you can get a Tyreek Hill, you can get a Keenan Allen, you can throw them into that lineup. And if that hits along with getting the upside of those players, I think it is pretty interesting today. So I like those. Andre, what are you looking at from a tournament perspective? Do you like either of Stroud or Ridder? And then where's your focus today?
I definitely do like Stroud and Ridder. I actually got both of my player pools right now that I'm actually getting to a lot of Ridder, more than what I was ever thinking of getting to. But I think it's a good play and a good matchup. Like the guys talked about the last show, the Detroit's defense is not whole right now. They got a lot of injuries on there, so I think the best way to go about it is to attack it. So I think going with the Ridder and hoping that he has a good game is the way to go. So I like being on that play a lot, especially if it's going to be about 1% ownership. I'll take that all day, every day, and just live with the results, honestly, on it. And Stroud, Houston actually always plays tough against Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence, record is, I believe, I want to say it's 1-4 if I'm correct against him. So to me, I think that's going to be more of a competitive game than we think. I do like both sides of that game. So I definitely don't mind playing a lot of Stroud or Lawrence for sure on that side too. And same thing with the opposite side of the Ridder. I like playing Jared Goff a lot too.
Anything else, Chief, you wanted to touch on at quarterback? If you have like the ultimate deep sleeper play, going down to Ridder or Stroud for me, at least on DraftKings, these guys are drawing sub 5% ownership. Where's Ridder? He's not really even coming up here. Stroud's at 2.9. Ridder looks even less. That's plenty enough to get different from a large field tournament.
I don't think sleeper. I do like Andy Dalton as well today. Like, I think this Carolina offense is going to look way better with him playing. Not that Bryce won't be good long term, but I think today, if you ask me today who's the better quarterback, it's absolutely Andy Dalton because of his experience. So I do like him. I mean, he's 4,900, I think, on DraftKings. The receivers are cheap. Britt, I did want to talk about just a little bit of strategy today at quarterback. Like, I'm going to have a fair amount of double stacks today in terms of, like, for instance, when I'm playing Lamar, I'm going to have a handful of lineups where I have Flowers and Andrews. When I'm playing Stroud, I'm going to have some Collins and Woods, some Collins and Tank Dell, some Woods and Tank Dell. If I'm playing Trevor Lawrence, I'm going to have some of those larger stacks, and then I'm even going to have some of the triples. Like, when I'm playing Lawrence, I'm probably going to have Lawrence. I've got some with Lawrence, Etienne, and a receiver. and so forth and so on. I think that's an advantageous way to build today. It may feel like negative correlation, but I'm expecting these teams to score, and so I am building accordingly. So just want to put that out there.
All right, I want to go to running backs. Andre, let me go to you on this. I think the preference is for a lot of lineups today is going to be insert two of the 5 to 6K running backs. It fits in if you want to get access to the high tiers on DraftKings and on FanDuel. 2 of the 6K running backs. You can include Jahmyr Gibbs at 7,000 on FanDuel. Those lineups on paper project great, right? All the optimizers, all of those things are going to throw them in here. Are you on board with that strategy? Are you going to Tony Pollard, who in himself will be pretty popular, who's anytime touchdown was minus 125 or something on Caesars? I couldn't actually believe that. So I'm heavily invested in Tony Pollard to score a touchdown today. Or do you prefer going off the beaten path a little bit?
Kind of like doing a little bit of both, honestly. It's kind of hard. I got actually a running back play that I really do like a lot that no one's talked about, which I'm surprised. And he does get about half the work. But I like trying to take some shots that way. So I do like getting ETN, who's at 6'9", Gibbs, and Kenneth Walker a little bit here. I like those guys in the 6K range a lot. Raheem Mostert too, especially with the other running back being inactive, and now they got to the third running back that they have there. But one of my favorite plays and tournament plays of the slate is getting to Tyler Algier. Like, we have been talking about Bijan all week, which is fine. I get that, but Tyler Algier's rushing attempts are not going anywhere. We haven't seen them go anywhere. He had 15 and 16 rushing attempts so far. The difference was he just scored 2 touchdowns in the first game. So, like, granted, I'm taking a personal chance and a bet that he's going to get in the end zone this time against Detroit and on a few of those touches. And if he does, he get to being in the winning lineup today, which at 1% ownership, if not less. I think it's a good move to go with.
Yeah, they're going to want to run the ball. So you make a good point. If those 2 touchdowns come in week 3 again, he is a very interesting, sub 1-2%, under 1% player we currently have projected on FanDuel and probably around that on DraftKings. Chief, what's your running back strategy? Who are a couple of your highest owned players? I don't know. There's a lot to dice up. You got a sleeper like an Algier.
Yeah, I've got. I don't really have I don't think I have a sleeper this week. I will have a fair amount of Gus Edwards. I just think with all these running backs being out, I mean, he's got to get touches. And I'm not expecting him to catch a bunch of passes. But listen, Gus Edwards, he's probably going to get at least 15 carries in this game. Probably, I would assume he hits 60 to 65 yards. I'm playing Gus Edwards for the fall in the end zone twice. Like, we saw Gus Edwards play, and we were seeing Justice Hill vulture 2 touchdowns. Well, that could easily be Gus Edwards this week with the lack of running backs that they have. If he scores 2 touchdowns, I think he's going for 50 or 60 yards here. He's pushing 20 fantasy points. If he happens to break 100, I think he's going to be close to slate breaking. I really like Gus Edwards a ton this week, despite the fact that he doesn't have a whole lot of pass catching ability. I like the role that Raheem Mostert has. I'm going to have a fair amount of Raheem Mostert today. I actually still like Javonte Williams in a matchup where they should be behind. Him and P. Ryan are still getting a few targets in this offense. And so maybe those are the sleepers. But Williams and P. Ryan, I think, are getting enough volume together in terms of the targets they get, a few carries. They could easily have a nice breakout game here with Denver trailing and having to get some of those dink and dunks. So I guess Williams or P. Ryan, and then Gus Edwards. Those are kind of some of the guys that I like. I do feel like we've kind of had some chatter about the running back from New Orleans, Keandre Miller. I don't think he's getting a lot of ownership, but like there's some sharps on him. I do have him sprinkled in some, but I guess those would be the only guys that I'm saying, deep dive. Those couple of guys, deep tournament.
Miller's interesting because he just gets you access to other players in your lineup because he's he's the lowest price running back for sure that you're going to have any interest in playing today. Let's do a couple of this guy, that guy, or rankums, because I've got some questions the people are probably going to have some need to get answered. Andre, I'm going to go to you. You can rank them. You can tell me which guy you're playing the most, however you want to do it. But let's play Joshua Kelly. Let's play Zach Moss. Let's play A.J. Dillon.
A.J. Dillon, I'm not even playing him at all.
Same for me.
Saints defense is too good. Zach Moss.
I'm playing the Saints defense in tournaments for what it's worth.
Joshua Kelly.
I'm probably going to go Moss just because of touches. And right now, just from everything I was looking at, the offensive line, the O-line is slightly a little bit better in Indy. So I'm going to go with Moss probably first and then Kelly too.
All right, Chief, I'm going to throw that to you too. How would you put those three in terms of the order you're playing? And I'm not playing Dillon in cash. I'm not playing Dillon in tournaments. He's bad.
I think I'm gonna go Moss, Kelly. Like even when we saw Kelly get a bunch of touches, he didn't get any targets. Moss is at least gonna get a few targets today. Like Gardner Minshew is gonna sprinkle him, let's say 2 to 4 times. So he's got upside for some catches, got upside for some rushes. So I think Moss is the better play here. And once again, I'm not really playing that game, so I don't have a need to play Kelly a whole lot. I am going to have Moss sprinkled in kind of a reverse effect in some of these Baltimore stacks.
All right, next one, Andre. Gibbs or ETN?
Oh, that's tough. I'm going to go that's really tough. I'm going to probably go ETN just because I'm not sure how much Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get as far as workload. They say he's going to get a lot, but he's been consistent so far with 7 and 7, and even when
he said the majority, so he's going to get 50.1% of the workload today. Right? we'll have to see.
Exactly, but he got 7 attempts the first 2 games, and Montgomery got hurt midway through that game. So I'm going to go ETN for sure.
Chief.
Yeah, definitely ETN. I'm heavy on that game for correlation. So ETN for sure.
All right. Let's go to some wide receiver talk. We've got if you play, specifically on DraftKings and on FanDuel, you can certainly have access to, in most lineups, one of the elite tier receivers. That's a Justin Jefferson, a Tyreek Hill. From a cash game perspective, I'm playing Justin Jefferson because I feel like most of the field's going to be playing Justin Jefferson. I have a distinct feeling Tyreek Hill's underprojected throughout the industry. I think the Blitz had him at 12 targets. RotoGrinders earlier was, I think, under 11. I would not be surprised to see him get the Puka Nacua, 20 target game, something like that coming his way today without Jalen Waddle. Mike McDaniels is he's a smart coach, and your second best player is out. What's Mike McDaniels going to do? He's going to get the ball to his best player even more. So I think Tyreek Hill is a little bit underprojected throughout the industry. I almost want to play Tyreek Hill over Justin Jefferson in cash, but I'm basically doing it for the block. I think Jefferson's the guy everyone's going to be using, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Tyreek do it. Do you guys have a stand at the top? What do your percentages look like? Andre, I can go to you first here. Jefferson, if Jefferson had a touchdown, he would be going, he's already going nuclear, but he would be going astronomical. He'd be in another galaxy if he just had a touchdown. They're going to come. The Chargers, I believe, have allowed the most passing yards or receiving yards, one of those two, probably the same thing. I don't know. These are 2 elite guys. I don't know how you can make a tournament lineup and look at it without having one of these in them and thinking you have a legitimate shot today, because these guys are in nuclear positions.
Yeah, they are. And I honestly have an equal amount of both of them, slightly leaning more towards Justin Jefferson right now. But I do like Tyreek Hill a lot too as well. Jefferson is, I think, they're both going to get peppered with a lot of targets. You can probably get both of them to your lineup if you really want to today. And to me, there's nothing wrong with that. I think they're both just excellent plays, honestly, overall.
Can we talk about those two for a minute briefly,
Yeah.
Britt? Listen.
Yeah.
So we've got Tyreek Hill about 5% in terms of ownership, at least from what I have. Hopefully, I didn't miss an update. We've got him about 5% lower than Jefferson right now in terms of ownership. Is that what we still have, Britt?
The last thing I saw was 12-11, basically right when we came on. I would assume that's the current projections.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think Tyreek Hill is in a better spot than Jefferson today, because this Jefferson receiving core, like, these are the guys that have been out there all season. So I don't think there's any uptick. Like, what? And look, he gets massive volume. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think there's an uptick here for Tyreek. We saw him get 15 targets week 1 with the regular regime. Like, there is no Waddle today. I've got to assume Tyreek has the Nuke game, and I'm not saying that, you know, he's going to catch 15 passes, but if Tyreek Hill gets 20 targets, Britt, if any of those are 50 and beyond, what if he catches 2 50-plus yard touchdowns out of these 15
It's
targets?
a legitimate.
That's what I'm saying.
This is what I was saying. He's underprojected today. If I don't have simulations, I don't have Excel spreadsheets doing this, but I looked at them, you know, some of the projections, and it's just, I think Tyreek Hill could get 15 targets. Imagine if he gets more than that. He already got 15 targets. Just like you're saying, Chief. I think he's underprojected. Yeah,
I think so. So here's how I see Tyreek today. Tyreek gets there in one of 3 fashions, and that sounds crazy with the receiver, but I think he's the number 1 receiver today because he's going to be the number 1 option in this offense. Like, period. He's ahead of Raheem Mostert here. Like, period. Right. So either Tyreek's going to catch 10 passes for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns, which are still going to put him squarely in play for tournaments, or he's going to have 7 catches for 150 and 2 touchdowns, Britt, or he's going to have 11 catches for 75 yards and no touchdown. Like, it's going to be something like that, right? And either way, no matter how you slice it, it feels like 20 plus is coming, and the upside for 30 is like squarely in play here. So I think for them to have, you know, a 5% ownership gap, I would much rather beef up my Tyreek exposure. And if you listen to the show before, and this is something I was going to talk about, like getting exposure to Braxton Berrios and River Craycraft is like elite today. Like, we've got these guys at basically sub 5% ownership, and we've got the Houston guys, Nico's at 9, Woods at 6, Tank Dell's at 10. River Craycraft and Braxton Berrios could easily put up the same or better scores today in this spot against Denver. So I wanted to point that out because they're getting no ownership, and the cheap Houston guys are getting some. I love the Miami offense.
Yeah, I like the cheap Houston guys for sure over them, but I understand from a tournament perspective. I want to give a quick run through of wide receivers you should have in your cash pool. We kind of cover both on here. Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk. I think Tank Dell, Nico Collins. I know you like Robert Woods a little bit with the receptions. I think he's certainly in there. Those are basically the guys I'm looking at from a cash game perspective. A high end, a mid tier, a low guy. Tank Dell specifically at 3,600 looks really good with Nico Collins. I like Nico Collins props, but also he has a reasonably tough matchup against the Jacksonville cornerback.
I have plenty of Houston passing attack for what it's worth.
Yeah, me too. And I want to reiterate, of my 5 tournament teams, I do have either Tyreek Hill, he's in 3, Justin Jefferson's in the other 2. I could not make a tournament team without either of those 2 players. They just present so much upside today. Andre, we talked a lot about them. What else is out in the lay of the land in terms of receivers today? You know, you never really, the ultra high owned wide receivers from the large field tournaments, you generally want to fade. I think we're a little smarter this year in who we're picking. All these high owned guys this week look like very good choices to me. Hard to get away from them.
Yeah, they definitely are hard to get away from them for sure. And I've been trying my best to do it. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown, I know he's dealing with that little bit of turf toe, but coming in at less than 10% ownership in that matchup, I think that he should be a little bit higher. So him I'm getting to a lot of. Amari Cooper, someone else under 10%, he should be getting a lot of ownership that I'm playing a lot of here today. A guy that is definitely off, like probably not a lot of people are going to be playing, but I like the quarterback change since he's hurt, is Adam Thielen at 3,500.
Yeah.
I think he's just going to be peppered with a lot of targets today. So I like him in tournaments a lot. So I'm well over the field on him today. Obviously, Mac Hollins, I like him a little bit, getting a little bit of him. I like Michael Thomas a lot too as well. I like that. I was going to bring that up, but then the guys brought that up earlier. I have a lot of exposure to him too as well today in tournaments. And
Yeah,
also,
I was going to bring up Thomas and Thielen before we moved on.
Yeah.
Thielen, the zone beater against Seattle's zone defense. Thomas looks like a pretty reasonable play on his own. He's cheap on FanDuel. He's like the Nico Collins, Christian Kirk pivot off on DraftKings as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in on those guys big time. Like, it's a lot of cheap receivers today that are just in really good spots. And once again, that's why I brought up Dalton. Like, I think the Panthers have better quarterback play today than they've had all season. Even Mingo, who hasn't been exceptional so far, I think he's got more upside today. I think the whole offense has more upside, including Miles Sanders. Like, this is a good spot for this team.
Are your Panthers regretting taking the quarterback shorter than me? For Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud, what are they regretting that yet, Chief?
I don't think so. I mean, he's just got an injury. I don't think they're regretting it. I think he's going to be fine. But I definitely think we see better quarterback play just because of Dalton's experience. His experience alone is going to help them with Seattle today. Period.
All right, let's go to tight end, Chief. I'll stay with you. So for real quick, cash games, Smythe 2,900. I think you could probably still play Kincaid. You've got Zach Ertz as well are the popular plays. Spending up, at least on DraftKings, probably not the smartest play. Even on FanDuel, you can't make Kelsey lineups get there, but I still think the Smythe Laporta tier in that 5,200, 4,800 is probably the way I'm going. Chief, tournaments, if that's what most people are doing, what are you doing?
I will have a fair amount of Zach Ertz just because I just think he's too cheap for the amount of targets he's getting about 10 targets a game right now. Like, I can't ignore that for 3,500. I like a lot of Cole Kmet because I think they're going to be behind in this game. So as a result, I will have some exposure to him. I'm going to have tons of Mark Andrews. Like, this spot with Baltimore being down Odell. I like the passing game. So once again, that Lamar, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews stack is going to be big for me. I like Evan Ingram. I don't feel like we've talked enough about Evan Ingram in this same spot with Jacksonville, who they're not going to have Zay Jones today. Evan Ingram's already been getting 5 to 7 targets in his offense, and now you're telling me they're down one of their primary guys. I think all the passing work is going to go through Ridley, Christian Kirk, and Evan Ingram mostly. So I really like him a ton today. And then, of course, on the other side, we've been honing in on the Houston receivers. Dalton Schultz obviously is going to be a guy that I want to get some exposure to as well. Those are some of my kind of, I don't want to call them off the board plays, but maybe a little bit different than some of the others.
All right, guys, if you have questions, start getting them ready. You can try to post them on YouTube. It'll go quick. Also, click the like button. We would greatly appreciate that. I'll throw you some bets as well if you want to get action on the sports books. And also, again, thanks to our sponsor, FanDuel. They're bringing the show to you for free. If you are a new user in FanDuel, in one of those states where you can use FanDuel, check them out. You can get some free bonus bets and a great sponsor of the show. All right, let's see here. Andre, tight end, real quick. Let me know what you're looking at.
Tight end pretty much is the same guys. I was going to mention Evan Ingram. That's one of my favorite plays that no one has really talked about really. So I'm going to be well over the field on him. That's a great call by Will there. I do also like Mark Andrews a lot, but Taysom Hill, I'm betting on him a lot. Just depending on the situation, with me knowing my favorite team and how they played last year, they ended up going with they pretty much ran a lot of Taysom Hill last year, in situations where the running back was hurt or not. So I expect that a little bit today here. So I got a lot of Taysom Hill in my lineups here today, and I think that will pay off well, honestly.
All right, Chief, give me 30 seconds on defense for cash. For me, we're looking at DraftKings. You're probably looking at Washington cheap. You're looking at the Bills. You're looking at the Browns. You're probably struggling to get much higher than that. The Cowboys, pretty unattainable over there. FanDuel, you're probably in the mid-tier. Dolphins. You've got the Bills, someone like that. I think I have the Chiefs on my FanDuel cash team right now, but what are you looking at?
I got more exposure to the Saints than anyone else. That's basically where I'm landing today, like mostly.
Andre?
Defense, let me look and see. My highest exposed defense right now is the Jets. I think the Jets defense is still a pretty good defense. Obviously, they're an elite defense, and it's probably a little bit chalky or mid-level compared to the Bills, which is going to be high on as well for what I'm looking at here. But I think the Jets is a good one. I do love the Saints a lot, too. I think that they're a sneaky one that's going to go overlooked as well. I do also like the Cowboys. Even though the Cowboys lost their corner, I still think that they are still an elite defense and can do some things against Arizona today. Don't forget about Seattle too.
Yep, Seattle's
they get Adams back, I think, today. So I think that's a big boost for them.
All right, I'm scrolling scores and odds real quick. I gave it at the top of the show. My favorite bet of the week: Patriots -2.5. If you have PointsBet, looks like it's at 2 right now. Everyone else across the board at -2.5. Let me see here. I'm still on the Dolphins. I wrote them up at 6.5. They're down to 5.5 or 6, depending on your book on there. Let's see. Nico Collins over 53.5 receiving yards. That's held pretty steady. My Tony Pollard, if you're on Caesars, -140 for an anytime touchdown. There's a couple of bets I'm on personally. Let's go to some questions. Going to go to the YouTube. Let's see what we can find for some of these people here. Michael wants to know, which 2 of these 3 running backs would you play in a high dollar tournament? Chief, I'm going to go to you. Pierce, Algier, or Gus Edwards?
Pierce, Algier, or Edwards?
Yep. I know you like Gus.
Yeah, I'm probably going Gus. Most likely for me. I think Gus is in an elite spot today.
If you had to choose between Pierce and Algier,
probably Algier.
I
I've just seen Pierce have too many. Yeah, I'll take Algier.
Yeah, you don't run that easy on Jacksonville either, so I probably would go with Algier on that one. All right, a couple more YouTube questions. Let's see, that was a Gus bus. A couple people on you with the Saints D. I can also go to the live stream chat in the RotoGrinders Discord. Let me see if anything's popping off in there real quick. But please get your questions in over the next few minutes. We'll be more than happy to answer them until the show is over, a little after 1 o'clock here. Champ wants to know, which combo? Let's see. Moss, Allen, and Kirk, or Ford, Williams, and Pollard? I'm staring at my DraftKings cash lineup. It has Moss, Allen, and Kirk in it. I'd be lying if I said that wasn't the combo I was going with. Is everyone on board with that one? I'm not on. We didn't really even talk Ford, but I'm done. I know he has the pass catching ability. I'm done with running backs against Tennessee. If Ford comes back to bite me today, I didn't really want to play last week against them, but I did, and I'm done being a donkey, so I'm not really on Ford.
Oh, yeah, I went full fade on Kelly last week. You know that, Britt. Running backs against Tennessee is just a no-no.
No, it's the passing game, but Champ, I'm going to go with the first one on that one. D Gold from the live stream chat in Discord, Mostert and Tank Dell, or Moss and Thomas. That's got to be a FanDuel play, right? Yeah, that's a FanDuel play. I'd probably take Moss and Thomas on FanDuel if that was my.
Yeah, that feels like more secure volume to me.
Dell is a DraftKings play. I'm going to play Dell in cash on DraftKings. So over there, PPR, 5-6 receptions, 40, 50 yards, touchdown possibility. That's good at 3,600 over there. All right, back to the YouTube. J-Wall wants to know, what do you think of a mini stack of Bijan with Laporta and Reynolds? That sounds absolutely amazing to me. Andre, what does that sound like to you?
I like it.
Bijan is, so I know you like Algier, but Bijan snaps went up last week. I
I
think
like
this
both
is,
of them.
yeah, not in the same lineup, but you would play Bijan, yeah, with Gibbs. I like Laporta. Laporta's been a very steady low-end tight end one with the volume. He's out there, and that's all you really want at tight end, someone who's getting receptions, who's on the field all the time, who's running routes. Laporta, a very good reason to do that. And if Amon-Ra or Reynolds aren't all banged up, right, you would expect Laporta and maybe Gibbs to maybe take up some of the slack on that one. So I certainly can get behind that. Let's see if I see any more questions. Nope, guys, feel free to get them in on YouTube. Let's see. This is from earlier in the Discord. Falco wants to know, FanDuel single entry, pay $800 more to get to Diggs at wide receiver over Mike Williams. So, Chief, I'm going to give this to you because you weren't really on the Bills. I like the Bills from a tournament perspective, specifically where you're comparing them to the Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson ownership comment. On DraftKings, it's a legitimate dollar-for-dollar swap you can make to go to the Bills over those two. What do you think of Diggs over Mike Williams, who's in that game? Williams also drawing high ownership because he's at a little bit of a discount.
I'd absolutely take Diggs there. Just because. So while I'm not on that game, remember, I'm still fading the Chargers, Vikings mostly. Mike Williams is not in the same wide receiver class as Stephon Diggs. Diggs is a number one that's going to get massive volume. So for me, if I've ever got to choose between Diggs and Williams, I'm taking Diggs every time, period. So I would absolutely go with Diggs in that spot.
All right. Andre Mabs wants to know this. Is he burning money playing Bijan and Algier in the same lineup? I think absolutely. You can
do that.
Not that you want one of them. I would play Bijan for sure. I like your Algier call in a vacuum, but definitely not. You're not playing them in the same lineup, regardless of what you think's happening in that game. So that's a no. You can play Algier with Gibbs. You can play Bijan with Gibbs, but you can't play Bijan with Algier in a tournament. Hopefully that helps you guys out. Let's see. YouTube questions running low. Gonna go back to the Discord. FanDuel Cash. This is from Who Mike. Do we trust St. Brown in cash? So I think I've played St. Brown in cash at least one, if not both weeks across a bunch of sites. Don't have him currently right now. I think maybe on Yahoo he snuck in there because he's reasonably cheap. I'm not exactly sure, but on FanDuel I have not because I couldn't fit it in the salary when I was getting up to Justin Jefferson or Tyreek Hill. I had to go basically a tier down. So you have guys like Christian Kirk. On FanDuel, you have a Michael Pittman who looks pretty juicy at his price range with the amount of targets he's been seeing from both quarterbacks that are going to be, from the Colts. He looks like the clear passing game priority. So I don't know, Chief. Amon-Ra St. Brown, how are you handling him today? And you can even throw in Reynolds from a tournament.
Yeah, I don't hate Amon-Ra. I think because of this injury situation, like people are kind of going to be in somewhat of a stay away mode. So I think I'm playing him. If he gets hurt, he gets hurt. I take it on the chin. But I think as a result, I want to prey on some of that uncertainty and some of the willingness to maybe, not play him as much because of that. You got to think about all these wide receivers. They've already got some injuries at wide receivers. He's the number one guy. Like, he's going to get work. They're going to move him around to Brit. Like, he doesn't stay outside. He'll be in the slot. So I think Amon-Ra is a good player.
What do we think of Olave, or I saw this in YouTube, Olave, or I think it was Lockett. Olave for sure with Jair Alexander out. Olave has skyrocketed up my boards. I didn't manage to get any in my 5 tournament teams, but if I was MMEing or if I had even a couple more teams, Olave would be someone I would absolutely be targeting today. Well,
yeah, absolutely. Big time.
Andre, what's your take on that? The Packers their offense is hurt, and with Alexander out, Jair Alexander, one of the league's better quarterbacks, him out has moved my past games. So why I'm on Michael Thomas a little bit, but specifically Olave, pretty good matchup now.
I agree 100%. I don't even think I got any Olave. I was focused on getting a lot of Michael Thomas. I might have to check now. But
Thomas is great too. I like, and you can throw in Shaheed on DraftKings for a tournament perspective. You know, if we're all playing Tank Dell and Adam Thielen, Shaheed's down there too. And he could go off for 100 yards and a touchdown against anybody with no Alexander. This could be the game absolutely for him. All right, so we basically are going to hit lineup lock in just a second. What do we want to go? We can answer a couple more questions, but so many of the games are locking. I think I heard Dean say this. 12 games at 1 o'clock and 3 at 4. This is no good. Nobody wants this. I don't want to watch this on Red Zone or whatever they call this. Granted, it's great for 3 hours, but the final 4 hours are going to stink. This is what nobody wants this, right?
I mean, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
This is my first Sunday off, so I get to actually enjoy watching football. I'm excited, so I'm going to look forward to doing that a little bit. I also did want to talk about strategy real quick. I know some people are not playing like the quarterbacks from that Minnesota game, which is fine. At least we'll just try to at least get one piece for that game. I know it's locked, but hope everyone at least did that, so that way you have some type of exposure to it.
I'm trying to think if I got any bets from the final couple of games. It's on Monday night. Puka Nacua, 64.5 receiving yards. This is just like a free gift from the sportsbook gods. They are just they're giving us free money, in my opinion, to go take that. You can take 100 plus. Was like plus 300 or something on DraftKings or FanDuel. That's one I like. You could probably tease a 6-point teaser with Dallas or KC if they're both 12.5 still to get them under the touchdown. Looks pretty good. I think I put that in personally before the show. You got anything you'd bet on from your Panthers game, Chief?
No, I didn't really get anything in on them this week. I got so much tied up in this Houston game, the Denver game. Like that's where a lot of my action in this week is this week. I got Zay Flowers early before he started bumping, like in terms of receiving yards. So I got him pretty early in the week. So yeah, I don't have much from the Panthers game.
Andre, what are you looking at? I mean, it's tough now. You can still get some live betting in. Anything you were looking at this week?
This week I've been focused more so. Huh?
Go ahead, Chief.
I was going to say I do have like a 23 legger in this week.
That would take. That's the $1 million parlay from that. Put that on.
But hey, it's
that's something
there.
you just tweet out for the people.
I got a 25 legger. I didn't.
You guys sound like my friends that I know. I put in a 14. It's great. The one someone hits those once a week, right? Someone hits one of those. They're very tough to hit.
Brett,
I like to do. Instead of that, I'm going to start, and I put one on scores and odds this week. The props I'm on, taking the alt lines and mixing like 3 or 4 of them together. I put 2 up, but you mix a couple of the plus 2 or 3 or 400s together of the alt lines you like, and you're already there. You don't need to hit 25 things. You only got to hit 3 or 4, Chief. That's my preferred way to go.
Well, I got money line sprinkled in mine too. That's why why it's up there so much.
Yeah, I understand that.
So basically what I did, I took everybody's money line that I took some props and paired with it in some single game parlay stuff. So like for the Miami game, I took the Miami money line. So I took Tua passing, Tyreek. I think I took Russell Wilson, like stuff like that. So it's not anything like overly crazy, but it just, that button gets clicked and it starts adding up.
Yeah. Let's see. Any scores yet? I don't see any scores yet, so we'll see.
I'm the same way. Just get the ideas and just keep going and just keep going. And
that's how you do it. That's what happens.
I think.
Listen, the day we hit it, Brent, it's going to be great for the company. It's going to be great for our pockets.
If I hit the $1 million parlay or I won the $1 million, Squirrel, he's just like a machine, right? He's just in there and he's just like, it's like, it's no difference, right? Where to me, I'd be like, well, take a couple weeks off, right? I'm good. I'm going to enjoy my $1 million. I know Andre won his. I know Bobby's won. I saw John won. It's just the machines, right? He's just on the next slate and UFC and MLB and Showdown. And it's just like, I don't know. I'd take a little time off and enjoy it, but I don't know. Will, like I said at the start of the show, I'm demanding our $1 million. Me and you, one of us, we're gonna hit this one at a time.
Yes.
Sorry, Andre, you already got yours.
Yes.
So I can share a little bit.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. It's a blast doing these shows. I was happy to fill in this weekend. Click the like button on your way out. We would greatly appreciate that. If you ever have any questions on bets or scores and odds or anything, shoot me a DM on Twitter at Brit_Devine. You can find Will at Chief Justice 06. You can find Andre at Drizzy26_DFS. Scores and odds is at Scores Odds. You guys know what RotoGrinders is. Have a good day out there. Thanks for producing all day, Steve. Much appreciated. For Will and Andre, I'm Britt. Thanks for watching, and we out, you.